All right, we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, Israel announces its plans for final solution in Gaza. It's official. They're doing it, or they say that they're doing it. Houthis strike Israel airport. You're stimming at the gym, I guess. Israel just struck Yemen. That's not surprising. Okay. Where was I? Houthi strike Israel airport. Trump unsure about due process. Tariff shortages incoming. Trump adds foreign film tariffs on the docket. Get in now. Bro, the thing that's so crazy about the Trump foreign flick tariff shit is that he's once again destroying his fan base. Like, who are the biggest Trump guys? Obviously, anime is universal, but let's be real. A lot of anime guys love Donald Trump. Okay? What does 100% tariffs on all foreign movies do to anime? It bricks it. That's it. Like, it's such a thoughtless, yet another incredibly thoughtless, incredibly stupid decision from the Trump administration. Did you see this already? What is this? Oh yeah, I heard about this. Please tell me you're on this. That's why American weebs must be destroyed and we should tariff anime 100%. I mean, I'm a weeb. I like anime. As you guys know, it's a big part of the contention in my conversation last Friday about my anime experiences and my love for anime in general. Do we have a blast off meme, by the way? First, he took away our figurines with the China tariffs. Now he's taking away our animes too. Yeah, 100%. It's not just anime. I know. I'm covering it from the anime angle specifically because what is
Ethan
this?
Klein's reaction to Hassan.
Okay, we're done. No more Ethan Klein reactions, please. All right, where are we at? Genuine question. How do you enforce tariffs on streaming services like that? The vast majority of VFX and animation are also outsourced to Asian countries. I don't understand. Do we have a blast off meme? I feel like none of y'all have a blast off meme. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to use this funny ass take. Wait, hold on. Okay, this is even better. Okay, we'll do Luffy. Happy birthday, Luffy. Happy birthday, Karl Marx. Where is it? Where the hell is my post? Okay. What? Once you have followers, I'm leaving for the majority report? What did you say? Once you have followers, I'm leaving to the majority report? What does that mean? Nah, sorry. I love the majority report. Abracadabra, umbra, ooh la la, na 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 na. Abracadabra, talk to me. Oh my God. I just got that unstuck from my head. I can't get it unstuck. No, when I was hitting the tens, that was what was playing. So it's like I put it on my friggin' Insta post when I was lifting. And now it's permanently stuck in my head. Lady Gaga. Are you going to Anime Expo in July? Maybe. Are you going to react to the Kanye West Piers interview? Piers Morgan interviewed Kanye West? Wow. Piers Morgan interviewed someone that's less anti-Semitic than me, according to some of my insane stalkers. Yeah. What do you think of the Midas touch? I don't know how to spell it. I love those guys. I mean, they're liberals, right? Like, they're obviously Democratic Party defenders across the board. Like, that's the agenda there. But still, Kanye's just goofing and gaffing. No, he's not goofing and gaffing. It's no longer new boots goofing for Kanye. It's more so he's goosing, goose stepping. That's what he's doing. At least it's not the Ruby Chan song. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Now, God damn it, dude. Why would you do that? Why would you say that? Why would you say that? You said that, and it's like, I have to say it. I have to sing it. I have to think it. New earworm unlocked. Your white shows when you try to dance. Lamau, I know. Stop. Every fucking K-pop idol ever is doing this trend, and it's all my feed is. Ruby-chan. Hi. nani gaske. Chokomito yorimo. Nata. I don't know how to fucking say it. I'm not Japanese. I'm so fraudulent. I'm such a fraudulent bitch. I saw this one. That one is incredibly stupid. All right. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? Let's freaking get into it. There's a lot to cover today. Israeli officials detail plans to seize all of Gaza and occupy it indefinitely. My ears just exploded. Would you rewatch Hunter x Hunter, preferably starting with the 1999 version soon? No. Why are you asking me that? Nancy Pelosi's pressuring Jordan to take more children from Gaza. Nancy Pelosi, who has long-standing friendship with Abdullah, took matters into her own hands last week and had a blunt conversation with Jordan's ambassador with the U.S., Dina Kawar, about Amman not accepting a sufficient number of sick Gazan children. I mean, okay, that's fine, great. That should happen, okay? That's like Band-Aid. Ridiculous that we don't even have the Band-Aid at this moment. But hello, there is also a much larger problem here, which is, the fact that we have genocide taking place. Like, why are those children starving? Why are those children suffering? Because of Israel.
Some breaking news. There's a major development in the Middle East. Israeli officials tell the Associated Press that a new plan has been approved to seize all the territory in Gaza and then occupy it indefinitely. MTS Tayeb has the latest for you from London. MTS, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. Well, the approval by Israel's cabinet of the plan.
About Three Worlds by Avi Shlaim. The entirety of the first chapter is basically him saying the Iraqis were victims of Zionism and missed their home after they were pushed due to Arab nationalism, but pulled to Israel due to Zionism. He talks about a nostalgia for Baghdad his grandparents had when they were forced to go to Israel. Yeah, also Israel was like pretty fucking ruthless to a lot of the Arab Jews initially. Like, was it Ben Gurion who said that they're like lower than dust or something, like they're desert people? Ashkenazi Jews initially were not very fond of. Ashkenazi Jews weren't very fond of like the Arab Jews initially. Like there was the same dynamic of like Western, unironic Western white supremacist thought internally within Israel as well. This is part of the reason why a lot of the most rabid supporters of the state of Israel are often Arab Jews, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, also from Iraq, Arab Kurdish Jew Itamar Ben-Gvir. I just had Turkish food on your recommendation for the first time the other day. Goddamn, don't add bulgur ekmek baklava. The shit slaps so hard. Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, let's lock in. Let's talk about the serious. Let's talk about the serious subject matter. Remember a few years ago when people were screaming that Israel would never want to occupy Gaza since they left in 2005? Yeah. No, you don't understand. It's because October 7, they have to. They're just forced. They had their hands forced.
Dramatic shift in this already brutal and grinding war, and comes as the Israeli military called up tens of thousands of reservist soldiers just this weekend. Now, critics inside Israel, most notably the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, have lashed out at the plan, calling it, and I'm quoting here, a failed strategy, since none of the 59 remaining hostages have been freed since Israel broke a ceasefire with Hamas 6 weeks ago and resumed its bombing campaign. Now, the forum also said the plan to expand military operations in Gaza, again, I'm quoting here, was against the will of over 70% of the people in Israel. Now, if implemented, hundreds of thousands of already displaced Palestinians will be pushed to southern Gaza, only worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis. For 2 months now, Israel has blocked all food, water, and medicine from entering the Palestinian territory, triggering what aid agencies are calling the worst humanitarian crisis there since the violence began nearly 1.5 years ago. Violence, which also saw the Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen.
I think one of the lesser considered aspects of this conversation from Israel, which is now pushing for the final solution, by the way, they want to ethnically cleanse a majority child population that they've starved out for the past 2 months. Okay, remember, this is a majority children population. There's a reason why 70% of their 70% of the people that they kill are either children, women, or the elderly, because that's just what the population is. Okay? So after starving them, destroying their cities in its entirety, and starving them for 2 months, now they're going to go in and do a full-blown military occupation. And obviously this is Nazi stuff. I mean, this is the Holocaust. This is the final solution. They are doing it in broad daylight, and they're doing it within the legal confines that they've created for themselves. Just like the Nazis, what they were doing to the Jews were legal by their own estimations, by their own designs when they implemented the Nuremberg race laws, right? So it's terrifying. The one thing I will say, where you get these numbers though, what do you think, this is a gotcha? Like what do you mean? I get them from the health ministry and also numerous other NGOs and also the United Nations. Like where do you, anyway, yeah, they're doing a final solution on Gaza. They're doing a final solution on the Palestinians there. The one aspect that is less covered in this matter, however, is if they even have the military strength to be able to do this. Do they have the numbers to do this? I know that there is definitely a lot of appetite for people in the war cabinet, for sure, especially the more radical elements within the war cabinet. But I don't know if there is enough manpower at this stage, but I have not checked in. Like I haven't been looking at the the numbers of like, or the drama that's happening with like forcible conscripts or the reservists not returning to duties. At a certain point, they're gonna have a hard time filling the ranks. In order to do a permanent military occupation, you have to fill the ranks. And I don't know if they have enough manpower. I genuinely don't know if they have enough manpower to do so, or if they have enough appetite to do so. Because like, there's a lot of people who just want to go back to their regular lives. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who are like, okay, I've done enough child murder. Like, can I please go back to my marketing job? Like, I miss my family. You know what I mean? The impact of all of that violence will also only be seen in a decade. We haven't even gotten there yet. You know how we have the 22 vets a day number in the United States of America? Some of the heinous shit that the Israeli occupying force has done in Gaza is like an Abu Ghraib every day. So that number is going to be far higher. Like this is going to have inevitably karmic damage or cosmic damage in the form of karmic justice to Israel for sure. So there is no, like, I mean, you can bomb these buildings over and over again, these hollowed out buildings over and over again. But like inevitably, if you want to do a military occupation, you need manpower. If you have manpower, there is going to be resistance against said manpower. There is going to be tunnel warfare, guerrilla warfare. Once again, Hamas has replenished its ranks, right? And then you got the Al-Qassam brigades. You got all of these other like militancy formations that are going to inevitably take out soldiers over and over again. And I don't think that Israel has the capacity to keep that operation up with straightforward manpower, like just boots on the ground military manpower, without American intervention. So therein lies the question. Does America intervene? Do we see the United States of America actually invade Gaza? Is that what they're going to do? Because I don't think Israel has the capacity. I don't think Israel has the capacity to continue the war. Obviously, cost of Gaza war escalation could top 15.4 billion, threatening Israeli budget stability. You have port shutdowns, obviously. You're right. I'm a 9/11 era vet that didn't even see combat, but I have friends who died in Afghanistan. People like us are anti-American as fuck. But it's not even just that. Like a lot of the breaking the silence guys are unironically people that have actually participated in sieges in Gaza, and then that made them incredibly grossed out to the whole fucking design. And that was like their wake up call. But having said that, we also have the PTSD side of things. Like this is signaling societal collapse, especially when you consider that the Israeli population numbers are constantly fulfilling itself, like filling up the ranks with the Haredi population. They're having like 6 to 8 kids. Okay. Those guys don't have to serve in the military, but those guys are also not getting the proper education that Israel wants to show to the Western world, that they are like just like France or, just like any other normal Western country. We have arts. We celebrate education. We celebrate the arts. We celebrate scientific accomplishments and whatnot. So like if the only people that don't have PTSD that remain in Israel, that's like becoming the next generation of Israel, are all young Haredi Jews who only get a religious education, then like the societal makeup of Israel is going to dramatically change. Do you see what I mean? And you don't get to benefit from a steady flow of Western intervention and Western aid and Western support and an expenditure of Western political capital in defense of your genocide if your country doesn't look Western. I feel like they will inevitably lose their favored client status if they can't keep up an incredibly sophisticated influence peddling operation simultaneously. Did you just replacement theory Israel? No, because it's not replacement theory. It's more so. I mean, it is a little bit like getting mad at idiocracy for having a eugenicist slant. But it's idiocracy. We're experiencing that here in the United States of America as well. But it is kind of like idiocracy, where the guys that are having a lot of children that allow Israel to no longer have to allow Israel to not have any sort of like birth rate decline. Those guys don't serve. They don't serve. They don't go to the same schools. They don't care about education in the same way. They have very different opinions on like women's position in society. And the more Israel becomes a majority Haredi population, which is, it's not there yet, but the more Israel becomes like a majority Haredi population like that, the less likely it is that it can keep up its sophisticated espionage operations or even sophisticated influence peddling operations in the West. As an ex-Haredi, I can assure you we receive little to no education. Yeah, it's mostly just like religious education, right? So it's I mean, it's just they're cooked regardless, if that makes sense. I mean, the West supports Saudi Arabia, and there aren't Western looking in any way, to be honest. If you think that like Saudi Arabia is a weapon to wield against Yemen, okay? As long as it is a part of the defense initiative that defends Israel's interests in the region, as long as it has a shit ton of oil. But Saudi Arabia is not a favored client state in the same way that Israel is. No country is a favored client state in the same way that Israel is. Saudi Arabia is just an important bulwark against Iranian intervention in the region because Iran is outside of our sphere of influence. The double irony here, of course, is that we are trying to Israelify the United States of America. A lot of our politicians look to Israel's fascism and say, we like that. We want that here. We should do more of that, please. Like, there is a truly terrifying number of politicians who I think unironically look to the design of Israeli society and where it has gone over the course of the past couple of decades and has decided this is good. We should do this, but for Christianity, Christian Sharia, you know? Israel is less a client and more the USA's pet, I feel. Yes. I mean, it's not the favored client nation status is just like a designation. It's an official an unofficial designation. Fuck the Yemen dude that pissed off so many people. It is not in the sphere of Western influence. It's in the sphere of Iranian influence. That's it. That's the major issue.
Launch a ballistic missile on Sunday, which hit the perimeter of Israel's main airport. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to respond to the attack, saying Iran would also face consequences from the strike.
Yeah, they have to pull Iran into this. And Iran has demonstrated restraint over and over again. Or some analysts will say Iran uses the Houthis as a way to respond to Israel, as a way to retaliate against Israel. But Iran overall has demonstrated major restraint throughout this process. That much is obviously clear, especially in comparison to fucking what Israel is doing. The only time Israel actually shows restraint is when they're trying to retaliate against Iran, ironically enough. But the reality of the matter is Israel needs to bring Iran into the fold because there are two reasons for that. One, I think this is a part of America's grand design in the region. I think this is definitely a part of America's grand design because Iran, if there were two poles on the planet with two hegemonic powers competing against one another, they're going to need energy, and China needs to get it from Iran if they can't get it from the regular OPEC Plus group. And America's number one goal in the next 20 to 10 year timeline is to take this war directly to China. That's part of the reason why they want to pack up the whole Russia-Ukraine stuff. And that's precisely the reason why they're letting Israel go absolute monster mode everywhere in the region, so that they can do this big destabilization and then restabilization with Israeli design, like restabilization where a lot of these areas are under firm Israel security commitments and Israel control, so that they can have some semblance of security and some semblance of stability, rather, for American national interests, and maybe even exert influence, exert pressure over our allies there to cut off the energy supply to China. That is the goal. That's why I also say American foreign policy will swing sometimes wildly, but it's often still directionally in the same. It's always directionally in the same agenda, towards the same agenda, but there are obviously differences in opinion along the way. Oftentimes it's the Republicans that push it even further and further right, more to more insane places, and then the Democrats don't do anything to pull it back because they also are in line with the same agenda. So is Pallywood just a modern day Nazi propaganda, or is that a little too far? No, it's not far. I look, it's up to you guys. You need to be very well equipped when you're talking about Israel-Palestine related things in order not to come across like you're anti-Semitic, because a lot of the language, even on accident, can come across like that. And I perfectly understand that, which is why I wouldn't recommend to the average person to make this comparison, because most people still at this stage will be like, whoa, I don't know about that. That's crazy. But I do not shy away from making the comparison of Israel and Nazi Germany, because I think we have definitely reached that level. But, you know, the less incisive language you can use is just to say it's fascist, because it is fascist, just like the Nazis. It is exterminationist. It is built on supremacist ideology, just like the Nazis were. But, you know, I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form inappropriate to make this comparison. Like, as a Jewish person, I always compare Israel to the Nazis. Yeah. NATO officials came to Japan recently to beg us to make more weapons and build up the SDF supposedly for Russia, but I think it's the goal of fighting China too. No, it's definitely the goal of fighting China.
This is what last night's Israeli airstrikes left in Gaza to be buried the morning after. The remains of a child so small they could almost be held in one hand, now dead before they had lived.
We hope that everyone will stand with us to stop this bloodshed and stop this extermination. We are people who love life. We are people who hope that the war will stop and that we will live in peace, security and safety.
This is the human cost of an offensive that is set to intensify if Israel carries out its new plan to seize more of the Strip. The Israeli military already controls around half of Gaza, as well as corridors dividing the region.
Yeah.
Government officials have reportedly said the new offensive will now capture the entire territory. This would mean pushing the population back south again.
This is what we will do. We will move the population for its own protection.
The Israeli Prime Minister suggested the military would not retreat from...
Bro, am I crazy, or does he look more like Hitler every day? I don't know what is going on here, but like, with the exception, obviously, because he's clean cut, he doesn't do the mustache shit, but like his hair, like, I swear to God, he's like Hitlerifying in front of our eyes. I think it's the haircut. Like, he straight up looks like Hitler would look like if he just shaved his fucking dumbass mustache. You know what I mean? Like, is he just like what's going on there? Is he trying to be like, haha, what are you gonna do about it? That's me. Tolstoy could never imagine particles to this degree. No, it's not Tolstoy, it's Trotsky. Tolstoy. It was Trotsky who said Hitler particles. What evil does to a motherfucker? I mean, yeah. War and Peace by Leon Trotsky. I mean, that dude loved to write too, but anyway.
From areas they raid. The plan would also impact the distribution of aid under conditions expected to be set by the Israeli military.
This would violate the humanitarian principles of neutrality, impartiality, and independence, and could also put people at risk by including aid workers by having them around these militarized zones.
And right now, agencies say the Strip is being starved by Israel's blockade. The import of food and medicine has been paused. Those in need of treatment have watched themselves wither right before the world, desperate for intervention. This is the voice from a health NGO based inside Gaza, speaking to Channel 4 News.
We feel utterly helpless, and we are afraid, maybe in weeks or less than that we will have nothing to offer to people, and that's why we urge the international community to help us immediately. Just let Gaza live.
This is Israel ahead of President Trump's visit next week. Although some believe Israel's government is attempting to place pressure on Hamas, these families and their allies fear for the impact on their loved ones. 59 taken hostage in Israel by Hamas remain in Gaza, and artillery does not ask for ID.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. It blows my mind what is going on, because like if there were no hostages right now in Gaza, I think the dynamic would look very different. Like I think that there wouldn't even be any protests. Like I know that there are people in Israel, like I think over time standing together, like a lot of the liberal Zionists that are even in movements like Standing Together either went full tilt Kahanist or went in the opposite direction and became more firm in their conviction against like Israel's genocide. But their numbers are nothing in comparison to the broader Israeli society. Like this is what I have seen from my own personal experiences, from what I've seen in the Western world, but what I've seen also in Israel as well. And I'm sure some of the Israeli Hasanabi heads could confirm or deny this. I don't know. But like there, after October 7, a lot of the liberal Zionists that were at the peak of like the Israeli liberal coalition that was like, oh, let's do peace. Let's do a two-state solution. Let's do, let's hold hands with the Palestinians and sing Kumbaya. But also like, let's, people that have protested, people that have demonstrated over and over again, not talking about the anti-Zionists, okay? But people that have protested and demonstrated, which is one of the more popular, one of the larger movements basically in Israel. A lot of those guys I was checking in were going crazy. They were baying for blood, okay? They were just going wild, right? And then it's like over time, I think as the depravity of the military operations became clear for some got way more radicalized in the opposite direction, and others became, I think, more committed to anti-Zionism than they ever did before. But those numbers are tiny still. They're marginal. So without hostages, because like the mass movements that happen in Israel, the largest category of like anti-government protests that are coming from hostage families and their friends and people that want a ceasefire specifically to take out the hostages. Those people have been polled in the past as well. And when they actually get polled, they still say like, no, just keep the war going after, but just like get our hostages out. And Benjamin Netanyahu, on the other hand, will not commit to even doing that, which is why a lot of people are very frustrated. There's the reason why in Israel, in Israeli media, especially with the last ceasefire was taking place, there were family members of Israeli hostages that were writing letters to Benjamin Netanyahu being like, you are the reason why this fucking deal is not taking place, which was correct. You are bringing up idiotic additional spoilers into the ceasefire negotiation, like not removing military presence from the Philadelphia corridor, the Rafah border crossing with Egypt, right? Like all of this stuff that they added on to the deal over and over again was specifically done so that Netanyahu could always say, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to actually do a ceasefire. And I think, I don't know what the dynamic would look like. Israel's made peace deals with Palestine 5 times up until October 7th. Yeah, those aren't real peace deals, brother. What are we talking about? This is like pre-October 7 Hasbara is where we're at now. What do you mean? Like, what's the logical conclusion of this argument that you're trying to present here? That like they did peace deals with Palestine and Palestinians couldn't keep up their end on those peace deals, so they must be ethnically cleansed. Is that your argument? Can you say your conclusion? Yeah, see? Exactly, because Palestine didn't want peace. Remember, chatters, the dynamic is always the same, okay? Here's what happens. There's a siege that takes place. They wipe out like 100 to 1,000 people. They blow up a bunch of buildings. Then they fuck off, Israel does, okay? And then there is a treaty. There's a ceasefire treaty. Israel then continues doing what it's doing in the West Bank, which is, of course, ruining the lives of the Palestinians under this illegal occupation, where they keep harming them, especially during Ramadan, where they'll actively go out of their way to disrupt travel to the mosque, disrupt the lives of Palestinians that are literally engaging in the act of just going to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and praying. And that provocation is always like there before that provocation happens, knowing full well that provocation is going to happen. Okay, knowing full well that provocation is going to happen, Hamas will release a statement. They will say, "Don't do this." Okay, do not do this. And then Israel will do it anyway. And then Hamas will turn around and fucking lob a couple rockets that immediately get intercepted by Iron Dome. Israel will use that as an opportunity to do another siege. This is what this man is talking about when he says Hamas always disrupts peace negotiations or whatever. It's not true. Okay. Hold on. This guy woke up thinking it's October 8th, giving us all the talking points. No, he woke up thinking it's October 6th, ironically enough. Also, it is pretty funny to say this because if this kind of rhetoric was incredibly effective in the Western world for years. Palestinians were no partner in peace, they said, right? Nah, I just see one side hating the other, and the other having to defend itself. Yeah, that is what's going on. That is actually what's going on. One side is defending itself, and that side is the Palestinians. And the side that's hating them is Israel. So you're actually not wrong. You've flipped the dynamic and it's on its head because you have sympathies for Israel. I get it. Like, I know where this comes from. You're wrong, but I understand why you're wrong. Anyway, the thing I wanted to mention here is more so about propaganda and how it works. Okay. Pre-October 7, you tried to describe how disruptive Israel was in these numerous ceasefire negotiations where they never actually gave a fair deal and they never actually wanted to implement any sort of fair deal whatsoever. Okay. If you were to describe that to people, they would not understand it. They'd be like, what do you mean? Bill Clinton even said that it was, Palestinians that were just no partner in peace. But now every single person in this community, at least, has seen the exact ways in which the depraved, morally repugnant American administration lies at the behest of Israel and how Israel behaves throughout the ceasefire negotiation process. So now you know, because you saw it over the course of the past year and a half. You saw exactly how Israel operates in these negotiations, and you saw exactly how the American government runs cover for Israel throughout these ceasefire negotiations. So looking at what has unfolded over the last year and a half will give you a better understanding of the reasons as to why previous ceasefire negotiations or any sort of pathway towards peace was completely cast aside by the responsible party, Israel. Do you understand? This is also why it's like a lot of the old Hasbara doesn't work. A lot of the old Hasbara doesn't work anymore. And it's not just because people can see directly what Israel is doing, but a lot of the old Hasbara doesn't work anymore because people have just become more aware. Like, people have become more aware of the way that Israel has operated throughout the past year and a half. And that completely eviscerates all of the carefully calculated, ahistorical ways in which this process has been taught to those who even care to learn about it in America. Hassan, I'm scared. You figured it out and you're loud about it. I'm scared for your safety. No, but the irony is, this is what I've been saying for years. This isn't new. It's just a lot of people have only recently figured it out. That's it. That's it. I've heard Israel is faking AI voice notes in Syria to put Druze against the Syrian government. I don't know about that. Is Israel's justification for their plan to seize Gaza that it's necessary to save the hostages? No. Ironically enough, they've completely given up on even entertaining that idea. They've given up on even doing propaganda in that direction. They completely dropped it. They openly said, last week, Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, hostages are secondary to our much larger, much more consequential plan of complete extermination of Hamas. Hostage negotiations are a hurdle. And he actually said it literally a day after Ethan and Sam argued against one another. After Ethan was like, oh, well, if Hamas released all the hostages, then, Israel would stop. Yeah. Ethan is about to go live. I'm a Fallen fan. I can't believe Ethan actually won the debate against Sam Cedar and you. Is shocking. It's not shocking. Thank you, tiny person. It is shocking. Many things are shocking to you, I think, if you feel that way. Like, oh my God, why is there a big ball in the sky that comes out every morning? That is scary. Is that fire? What is fire? Shocking. Yeah. I mean, this basically came out like a day after Sam and Ethan had that conversation. Netanyahu says destroying Hamas more important than free hostages, which, again, if you were paying any attention to the dynamic at all, you would have recognized that. You would have recognized that months ago. We are finally going to conquer Gaza. We are no longer afraid of the word occupation, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich told a pro-settler conference in an online discussion. Israel may seize all of Gaza in expanded operation, officials say. Summary, door open for ceasefire talks as Trump heads to the region. Military will hold territories it seizes, Israeli officials say. Blockade remains on aid for now. Tens of thousands of reservists will be called up. Humanitarian agencies condemn Israel's new aid plans. See, there's also an incredibly nefarious side of this, which is that they are going to do something that is totally illegal that they wanted to do in the past as well under the Biden administration. Apparently, according to reporting that I read on it, at least, even the Biden administration was like, you can't do that. They want to distribute aid with the military. They want to control who gets aid in the Gaza Strip. That in and of itself is insane. I mean, this is literally Russia shit, okay? This is what the American government was like yelling to Russia about over and over again. I mean, it's not any, like, even the Russian annexation occupation was a bloody affair. It was incredibly deadly, but like at no point is there not regular commerce happening, right? No, it's not even American shit. No, it's not even American shit. This is worse. I'm telling you, this is worse than Russia shit. This is worse than America shit. This is straight up like picking and choosing who gets to eat food. Like, it's absolutely worse than Russia shit. It is absolutely worse than America shit. This is stuff that, I mean, it's Nazi shit. Yeah, Israel's government has approved a sweeping plan to seize all of Gaza, indefinitely occupy its territory, and displace its population southward, advancing what rights groups warn is a military-engineered campaign of ethnic cleansing. Military conquest, indefinite control. The Security Cabinet unanimously backed the plan by Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir to capture the Strip and hold the territories, escalate attacks, and block Hamas from accessing humanitarian aid. The plan also includes moving the Gazan population to population south for its defense and intensifying bombing campaigns. There's no timeline for withdrawal. I also want to mention something. I didn't really cover this as much. I didn't really cover this aspect as much, but like the Israeli military, by way of infiltration and sabotage, has armed criminal elements within the Gaza Strip. Okay? They've given him like NATO weapons in the Gaza Strip to go and run rampant on the aid. Hamas, as of, I believe, last night, actually publicly executed numerous criminal gang members and implemented a 9 p.m. curfew because the Israel-backed gangs would cause chaos in an effort to stop aid distribution, what remains of the aid that was being distributed. This, of course, on top of blowing up food refinery facility, like grain silos, like blowing up the last areas where there is any food whatsoever. 2 months of complete blockade on aid entering the Gaza Strip. The trucks full of aid are just sitting on the border. They are not letting them. They are not letting them enter the strip. How do you know the gangs are Israel backed? Oh, great question. The reason why I know the gangs are Israel backed is because obviously there's going to be criminal elements regardless. But according to the reporting from the remaining Palestinian journalists that are still alive at this point, every single time there was gang activity, there would be drones around, and they never actually shot at the dudes with guns in broad daylight. So tell me, the very same Israel that literally has implemented killing fields, the very same Israel that shoots at humanitarian aid workers that are engaging in the process of deconfliction with the Israeli Defense Force, the very same Israel that has killed World Central Kitchen aid workers, the very same Israel that has killed 15 medical workers from the Palestinian Red Crescent, that Israel sees dudes running around with guns and does not kill them. What does that mean? There's drones all around that offer protective cover. Yeah, Israel wants local clans to run Gaza after the war, but the candidates are refusing. Jerusalem is trying to forge a path to non-Hamas governance, but hope of working with Stripp's powerful families dampen the fears of retribution as terror groups still dominant. We are not collaborators. Israel should stop these games. Reuters, the plan for post-war Gaza that Israel has pitched to U.S. allies is to run the Strip in cooperation with powerful local families. But there's a problem. In a place where Hamas still wields ruthless influence, none want to be seen as talking to the enemy. Jerusalem is under pressure from Washington to wind down its military offensive nearly 9 months after October 7 Hamas massacre inside Israel, but does not want the Palestinian terror group to remain in charge after the fighting ends. Israeli officials have therefore been trying to plot a path ahead for the day after the fighting stops. This is all the way back from the 2nd of July, 2024, by the way. Yeah, this is the other side of the story. Yes, new. Armed gangs are looting food warehouses across Gaza, and Israeli drones are reportedly targeting the police and volunteers trying to stop them. Multiple sources, including eyewitnesses and journalists, say the gangs are backed by Israel. Here's what's being reported. Tarek Azam, Gaza correspondent for Al Jazeera English, reports local gangs reportedly backed by Israel are looting what remains of Gaza's food warehouses. Israeli forces, he says, have struck police officers who were trying to stop the thefts. One of the first-hand accounts comes from a volunteer at a community kitchen in western Gaza. He says armed gangs attacked their facility. Attacked their facility twice in one day. The second time, they fired live rounds and broke into a food store serving 1,500 plus families. Now, what's really interesting about this, once again, is that Israel says Hamas is doing this, except Hamas has punished the criminal gangs that have done this. They executed a bunch of them and then implemented a curfew as of last night, 9 p.m. curfew in the Gaza Strip as of last night. If you recall, there was a lot of chaos at the point of humanitarian aid being delivered into the Gaza Strip at numerous occasions, okay? And I remember covering the story where there was the time when they shot at the aid delivery, and then the aid delivery trucks like had to get out of the way, like they just there was a stampede. And they did the flour truck massacre, if you remember. And I believe right after the flour truck massacre, the Gazan police force, the civil, like the civil part of the civil governance division, the civilian population, okay, not like Hamas's militant wing, not the Al-Qassam brigades or anything like that. The Gazan police force actually came in and said, we are going to implement a process here. So they literally they designed a way for the humanitarian aid to be distributed in a organized manner. The next day, Israel killed the police chief. The next day, they went in. There was a single file line. Everyone was getting their fucking aid and getting out. The next day, Israel killed the police chief and then said he was Hamas. The next day. Why would they do that? They did that because they want this chaos to exist. They do that because they want there to be a constant sense of pressure and violence and chaos and to never stop that. No order, none of that whatsoever. This is part of the reason why I say October 7 aside, okay, the atrocities that took place on October 7 aside, which were conducted by a collaborative effort on all the Palestinian factions, the entirety of the Palestinian militant resistance, okay? after October 7, since Israel's genocide started, or at least accelerated, if you want to call it that, everything that Hamas has done in that time frame has been legally permissible, with the exception of maintaining hostages. That's it. Brother, the things you're saying is really sad and disgusting, man. What the fuck? This is disgusting. Are you saying like what Israel is doing is disgusting? Like hearing about it makes you sad? Is that what you mean? Or are you saying that like the statements that I'm making are disgusting because they're untrue or something? Because this is, yes, that is correct, Israel. Oh no, he's saying like it's making me sad because what Israel is doing is disgusting. Okay, got it. Hassan, can you tell me where I can do research on this stuff independently and get the same info as you? I think you can. I mean, Drop Site News is very good. They're incredible on their reporting. Al Jazeera has fantastic reporting on this stuff. Every now and then, I mean, look at the news sources that I look at. Like I when I'm covering this stuff, when I'm covering every news story, whether domestic or foreign, I look at virtually every single type of news outlet that's out there. All the way from far right news outlets to liberal Zionist newspapers, all the way to anti-Zionist publications, and places like Democracy Now, places like Drop Site that do fantastic investigative reporting that work with journalists on the ground. But yeah, the humanitarian aid plan that they're presenting as a humanitarian aid plan is literally to hire mercenaries tied to Israeli leaders, not aid groups. Israel wants to create de facto internment zones. Israel wants to set it up in Rafah, a city it already destroyed and depopulated. It's not real humanitarian aid. It is just simply another mechanism of ethnic cleansing. Investigative journalist Mohammed El Zanin has documented 3 Israeli drones in a single hour on patrols attempting to stop the looting at El Tawra and El Wahda streets in Gaza City. Those targeted, he reports, were community volunteers and local police. So these guys, in their endless resilience, Palestinians in their endless resilience are trying to do their very best to maintain some kind of civil order within a fucking ghettoized part of within an open air concentration camp that is currently being bombed by its belligerent occupier, and in that process they're literally still trying to kill the people that are trying to create some semblance of order so that less people die from famine. Drop Site interviews the Hamas official not that long ago. So does that make them terrorist supporters too? Clown shit. No, don't listen to people that say stuff like that. Okay. When people hit the "you're a terrorist, you support terrorism, we must deplatform you," they're just trying to shut you up. Okay. Or specifically me. They're trying to shut me up because they're worried that people are recognizing the events that are unfolding. Okay, that's it. They don't want to actually tackle the conversation. They don't want to actually have a hard to deal with conversation. They just want to say, you are dangerous. You're a dangerous person. You're a terrorist. Stop talking. My brother's an Asman watcher and he's fallen for the Hassan as a terrorist supporter BS. We argued about that this morning. This is funny. Hassan Parker thinks being a man is simple. Tel Aviv Institute, delete this. Yeah, exactly. They do not want to have a nuanced discussion. They do not want to have a conversation. They do not want to talk about like any kind of militant resistance against a nation state that is doing apartheid. Hassan is the king of Darvo. I don't even know what Darvo means. It's like something that narcissistic boyfriends do, right? Isn't that what it is? Yes. My coverage on this issue, my coverage on this stuff is actually just like your fucking shitty ex-boyfriend. You're right. Thank you. What is this? For the record, if you're wondering what real anti-Semitism looks like, it's this. What is this? What happened? Advertise on Twitch? Oh my God, dude. This is so fucking stupid. This is so unimaginably stupid. Yeah, I'm like, I wonder why they won't show the fucking video, dude. That's crazy. Dan Stalkman, dude. It's simple. If you're wondering, DARVO is an acronym for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, and Offender. Using pictures the same as everyone trying to justify Elon's on video, Twitter, Nazi salutes, and others mid-wave. What? That makes it seem like people are nefarious and not just ignorant. My dad told me I'm a terrorist supporter, but I don't think he has any idea what Islamophobia even looks like, even though he's massively Islamophobic. Oh, no, for sure. I knew someone was going to clip you out of context. Bro, they didn't even clip me out of context. They just literally screen grabbed something to make it seem as though, like, this doesn't say anything. You have to literally think, oh, this guy must like this. There's so much motivated reasoning here. Yeah, I saw that H3 Productions also posted it. This Hassan stream could be a disaster for Twitch and Amazon. One thing I haven't seen many people yet, this controversy around Hassan's stream title and content could create real problems for Twitch and by extension Amazon. Yes, dude. This is going to be really controversial for Amazon, which is literally me covering a fucking anti-Semitic incident. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing accountability. Hassan should really stop covering anti-Semitism. My Hebrew school was being anti-Semitic when they taught me about the Nazis and the swastikas. Yeah. I tried arguing with people on X today who said Ethan smoked you in that debate. No, don't. You don't have to. Yeah, I found something out about Tectone recently as well, which I thought was very crazy, but we'll get into that later. It's not significant for the time being. We got some more serious issues to deal with. Okay, so the Security Cabinet unanimously backed the plan by Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir to capture the Strip and hold the territories, escalate the attacks, and block Hamas from accessing humanitarian aid. As I dove deeply into the whole, what Israel is trying to do with the humanitarian aid distribution, or what they have done so far in an effort to design this incredibly chaotic set of circumstances in an effort to destabilize the Strip, in an effort to harm the Palestinian population in the Strip, they are going to directly pick and choose who gets the aid and who doesn't. Militarily, no pretense of retreat. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich openly embraced the term occupation, saying, "We are finally going to occupy the Gaza Strip. We will stop being afraid of the word." He vowed that there will be no retreat from the territories we have conquered, not even in exchange for hostages. The plan calls for moving Gaza's 2.1 million people, most of them already displaced, towards the far south, a region bombed repeatedly and barely able to sustain those already there. Humanitarian agencies warned this will have a devastating impact on the weakest and most vulnerable. The cabinet also approved in principle a parallel plan to bypass the UN-led aid system and hand control of aid distribution to private contractors under Israeli military oversight. The Humanitarian Country Team, a collective of UN agencies and humanitarian NGOs, condemned the plan, warning it contravenes fundamental humanitarian principles and appears designated or designed to reinforce control over life-sustaining items as a pressure tactic as a part of the military strategy. They further warned that the plan would mean large parts of Gaza, including the less mobile and most vulnerable people, will continue to go without supplies. The HCT added, "It is dangerous driving civilians in the militarized zones to collect rations, threatening lives, including those of humanitarian workers, while further entrenching forced displacement. Captives deprioritized. No captives have been free since Israel resumed its offensive. The Hostage and Missing Families Forum accused the government of sacrificing their loved ones, calling it the Smotrich-Netanyahu plan for sacrificing hostages and abandoning national resilience and security. Gaza pushed towards famine. Israel's blocked nearly all aid since the 2nd of March. The UN says famine is approaching. Bakeries are shut. Warehouses are empty and hospitals are collapsing. Yet Israeli officials claim still that there is no shortage. Delaying escalation until Trump's visit, Israeli officials have indicated that the intensified military operation in Gaza, known as Operation Gideon Chariots, will commence after U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to the region, scheduled for May 13th to the 16th. Israeli senior defense official stated, "If there is no hostage deal, Operation Gideon Chariots will begin with great intensity and will not stop until all of its goals are achieved. Israel's plan is a full-scale plan for conquest, mass displacement, and indefinite subjugation." Trump apparently just commented on this plan. I haven't even seen it yet, but I suspect he's going to say it's great. Trump's response when asked if he supports Israel's upcoming invasion and occupation of Gaza.
"We're going to help the people of Gaza get some food. People are starving, and we're going to help them get some food. A lot of people are making it very, very bad. If you look, Hamas is making it impossible because they're taking everything that's..."
Yeah, that's bullshit. That is 100%. I will say it. That's bullshit. Okay?
Brought in, but we're going to help the people of Gaza because they're being treated very badly by
Hamas. Not Israel. Israel's treating them very good and will treat them even better. They will treat them even better by giving them the food to whoever they see. Yeah, they're framing it. He's framing it as a rescue mission. Oh, this is low key. This is very Brandonian. Okay, this is the Brandonification of Trump. Not to say that he's like losing his marbles. He already has, and he is Brandonizing in that way at an alarming rate. But this is Brandonizing in a different way, where He looks at something that Israel is doing that is utterly unconscionable and then tries to reframe it in a more positive way. This is literally the same as like Brandon being like, no, we're putting a Gaza port there. Like, what do you mean? We love giving humanitarian aid to the Palestinians. Like, we're building a port. Gaza Aid Pier Part 2. Like, that's what this is. This is a more liberal framework to operate off of. For the past couple of months, he was very reactionary. He would just be like, yeah, we're just going to ethnically cleanse all Palestinians. What the fuck do you mean? Well, I'm going to put a Trump Tower in the Gaza Riviera, right? Like, he kept saying that. And now he's basically figured out, or at least his aides have told him, like, dude, you can't keep saying that. You have to soften your approach. You have to at least make it seem like we're trying to help the Palestinians. So at least on the optics side, he's trying to massage the argument a little bit to make it seem as though this is a positive thing.
Hamas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's you know, hitting that Brandon line perfectly. All right, let's keep going.
When it lands.
Do not report for reserve duty for moral and ethical reasons. This operation will result in the killing of hostages in captivity, will result in the deaths of those who have been kidnapped.
This week will renew focus on a peace process that has broken down and in need of an urgent solution. Food is scarce, supplies have stalled, and the death toll is over 52,000.
Well, I've been speaking to Jan Egeland, who's Secretary General of the Norwegian Refugee Council, and I began by asking him about his organisation's opposition to Israel's plan to take over distribution of aid to Gaza.
It's a fundamental for us as humanitarians that aid should be delivered in an impartial, independent and neutral manner to those who need it the most, where they need it the most. And this new Israeli scheme is really an ultimatum saying the little aid we will allow in, we will dictate who will get it, where, and if they get it. And they will only provide it, it seems, to a few concentration points in southern Gaza. So people who cannot move to those places will be eliminated from aid. We cannot be part of a dictatum coming from a party to an armed conflict on whom should receive humanitarian aid.
I mean, will that not leave Israel saying, well, we're happy to take aid in, but it's the aid agencies who are refusing to hand it over?
No, it would leave the Israel to actually be responsible morally and legally for all aid that is given and for all of those who are excluded, because we cannot be part of that. We are not asked to do that anywhere else in the world. We've never agreed to that anywhere else in the world the last 100 years.
What do you think this is part of? Because we're also hearing today Israel's announcement of a potential full occupation of Gaza. It's all very unclear exactly what's happening, but are these things integrated, do you think?
They may be. It seems they are now only following a cruel military logic that will not bring the long-suffering hostages home to their families in Israel and will prevent the women and children, the innocent in Gaza, from getting aid. I don't understand why they would do this. This will come to...
Why would they do this? Maybe because they're Nazis and America loves that they're Nazis and it actually perfectly aligns with their exterminationist interests, you know? Like, that's it. Now, of course, this is like, brother, do you really believe that the hostages still being held / even alive? Some of them, yeah. Why wouldn't they be? Dude, if hostages have been kept alive through intense bombing campaigns, the Al-Qassam brigades recently, I think like what, a week ago, released a video of them digging out Israeli hostages from underneath the rubble because Israel had blown up an area where hostages were. I think I'm not crazy for saying this. Like, I mean, we already know that there is a military doctrine in Israel called the Hannibal Directive, right? which is that in order not to give Hamas any leverage whatsoever, in order not to give any Palestinian resistance group any leverage over Israel whatsoever, they would rather kill Israeli citizens or Israeli soldiers. Initially, it was about Israeli soldiers instead of dealing with Hamas at the negotiations table. And they did. They killed a bunch of people on 10/7 as well, on October 7. This much was suspected. This was suspected initially. I didn't entertain it until there was confirmed evidence. There was some confirmed evidence that came from the kibbutzim, from some of the Israeli, people that lived in the kibbutzim that saw the tanks firing into the kibbutzim. There was also some suspicions that helicopters were peppering the cars full of Israeli civilians that were trying to escape the Nova Festival. And Yoav Gallant confirmed it as recently as last month when he was doing his little fucking media tour. Yoav Gallant is the former defense minister of Israel. He was the defense minister during October 7. And I think that the considering that actually, kibbutzim are people who live in a kibbutz. The kibbutz is a village community, just a heads up. I know. Yes, I know that. Anyway, as I was saying, it's not, I don't think it's a stretch to assume that Israel is trying to actively kill hostages, because they see it as a serious hurdle to their military ambitions, their military strategy. This will 100% be used as a strategy to arbitrarily mass arrest random Hamas cooperators who receive aid, much like how Israeli travel visa system has been used historically. Smotrich on the Gaza plan. Yeah, they don't care about the hostages.
To haunt Israel and the United Kingdom, the United States and Germany, that can.
Kibbutzim is the plural form of kibbutz. I know. And kibbutznik, right? Kibbutznik would be someone who lives in a kibbutz, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's continue, please.
Influence Israel has to do so. If not, they will have their fingerprints all over this catastrophe.
I mean, if they are looking to get the Gazan population into the south, I suppose it gives them the option of pursuing the Trump plan to get people out, to get them over the border into Egypt. Do you think that's what's going on?
Well, I fear that the borders to both Israel and Egypt will remain closed, and will be more and more people be concentrated in some kind of an internment camp where they will say, this family member can go and get a box of 20 kilos once a week without water, without cooking oil, without anything, to barely survive if we can facial recognize that one member of that one family. I mean, it's total control of a civilian population and deciding who will suffer, who will be have aid, who will not.
Do you think the international institutions, the UN, are functioning effectively at the moment? I mean, who can bring any pressure on Israel over the aid issue, first of all?
The reality of the matter is the only country that can actually apply pressure at this point is the United States of America. And Donald Trump is not going to do that. And Biden was not going to do that either and didn't do that. And we have no reason to believe, the reality of the matter is we have no reason to believe that Kamala would do anything different, considering that she routinely said that she was lockstep in tow with the Biden administration. Okay? She said there's no daylight between her and Biden. And Biden did the exact same shit. On the optics side, maybe Biden would try and massage the narrative a little bit, say, oh, I'm so mad at Benjamin Netanyahu. But on the reality side, they didn't care. So the only options in this circumstance are to apply pressure militarily from other regional actors that make it as costly as possible for Israel to continue this initiative. Internal struggle from anti-Zionists all the way to hostage families that keep protesting against the Israeli government and try to get people to refuse to go back on reserve duty as they are doing a call to arms, and also potentially China. European sanctions could help, but I don't think European sanctions I don't think European sanctions would help without American like Europeans will not sanction Israel without America. I would be shocked if they did that. Like legitimately shocked if Europe would actually take action against Israel without America's go ahead. The reason why I say that is because Germany is the responsible party for the International Criminal Court, okay? Germany is not only the manufacturing engine and the industrial engine of the entirety of the European Union. Germany is the country that has basically designed the entirety of the European Union. They are the de facto controllers of the EU. And the reason why I'm bringing up Germany is because it's in their constitution that they must abide by the International Criminal Court because of, the whole Nazi stuff, right? And even then, Germany has been inconsistent in its messaging about whether or not they would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. Once Germany came out and said that, it was over. That means that they're getting their notes from the United States of America on this issue, and they will not stray away from the United States. I'll give you one additional example. They don't really give a shit about what Israel does, right? European countries don't care about, like the European politicians don't care about what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. They don't care at all because, they're killing Muslims, and Europe doesn't really care about that at all. However, they do care about Russia. They are legitimately fearful of Russian, further Russian occupation into Ukrainian territory, and maybe even Russia spreading its invasion, right? They're afraid of that. That is a legitimate fear that European politicians have. And yet, despite despite all of their claims of how they are going to help Ukraine separately from the United States of America, if the U.S. won't help Ukraine, we will. Like all of these talks, all of this posturing took place. They haven't actually stepped out of line with the interests of America at all in this process, if you noticed. The reason as to why they haven't is because they are still, in my opinion, very firmly within the sphere of Western influence, the sphere of American influence. So if they're not even stepping, by the way, Germany do not control the EU. EU has a parliament and commission. Do not speak about the EU. If you're not from any EU country, I'm from EU. Things are voted in the parliament. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Germany has been very consistent. They've said repeatedly that it would be unconscionable for an Israeli state official to be arrested on German soil in direct, that is a direct violation of the German constitution as far as abiding by the International Criminal Court standards, abiding by the International Criminal Court's arrest warrants. That is insane. Okay, stating that means that they care more about American interests and following America on this issue than their own fucking constitution. So that's something to consider. As a middle-income American, what can I do in my day-to-day to make conditions in Gaza better? I participate in BDS list protests and donate where I can. Wondering if you have any options on action items. Yeah, just doing that and continuing to do that and continuing to try to get people to understand what is actually taking place in Gaza is the best possible thing you can do. Change does not happen overnight. It's marginal. But as someone who has been an advocate for Palestinians for the past decade and a half, okay, I will tell you that a lot of change has taken place in terms of the public sentiment, in terms of the public attitude that has dramatically shifted. So you have to keep up the pressure. That's it. So as I was stating, the discourse in Germany is dead. Berlin announced a city partnership with Tel Aviv today. Our new government is completely hopeless. Yeah. Look. The reason why I brought up Germany, or the reason why I brought up the European partners in this process is because someone in the chat brought up that maybe the EU would turn around and actually apply pressure to Israel. And I'm telling you that is very unlikely. If they actually decouple from American foreign policy interests in the region, if they actually did that, they could at least they could apply a lot of stress, a lot of pressure to Israel. 100%. They have that power. It's just that they will not do that because they are functionally still a vassal for American interests. Their politicians are. The population and the politicians are directly at odds on this issue. Okay? How Hamas sees the current moment. An exclusive interview with Osama Hamdan from Jeremy Scale. In a wide-ranging interview job site, the senior Hamas leader discusses negotiation strategy, why disarmament is a red line, his direct talks with U.S. officials, and more. Drop site got an exclusive interview with the senior Hamas official, Osama Hamdan, said that the movement will not capitulate to any demands from Israel or the U.S. to lay down its weapons, and vowed that Hamas will reject any temporary ceasefire deal that does not include a clear path to a total Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and an end to the genocide. No need for a short-term ceasefire, said Osama Hamdan, one of the longest-serving senior officials within Hamas. What the Israelis are offering is, we will give you a ceasefire for a short while, and then we'll come back and kill you again. So what's the idea of giving you food 12, 40 days, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, and then coming back to kill you? It means that you endorse the genocide and you accept that for your own people. It has been 2 months since the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal signed in January between Hamas and Israel came to an end, and Israel imposed a full... Do you condemn Dropsite News for providing material aid to Hamas? No, I do not. I am condoning Dropsite News for getting an incredibly important interview like this. We already know the details, but since March 2, Israel has prevented all food, water, medicine, fuel, and other supplies from reaching the besieged enclave, plunging Gaza into the worst humanitarian crisis in the 19-month war, according to the UN. On March 18th, Israel resumed its scorched earth bombing, killing more than 2,400 Palestinians, mostly women and children. During this period, regional mediators, Qatar and Egypt, have failed to convince Israel to return to its original three-phase framework, which stipulated a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and the declaration of a permanent ceasefire. Instead, Israel has issued a series of sweeping new demands as a condition for any halt to its genocidal operations. Central among those are the total demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, the exiling Hamas leaders, and the removal of Hamas as the governing authority in Gaza. I believe that Israelis don't believe in any solution with the Palestinians. When they talk about disarming the Palestinians, it is their idea of killing the hope of the Palestinians to be liberated. And even then, if they want to push them out, the Palestinians will have no way to defend themselves, Hamdan said, referring to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's stated plan for a final stage. Because remember, it was, just release the hostages and it's fine. Now it's release the hostages and surrender in its entirety to complete Israeli occupation and it's fine. The goalpost has shifted. The goalpost now is release the hostages, surrender weapons, and then also be ethnically cleansed from the land, for the record, because that is the final stage of the final solution, which is to remove all Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. Hamas has said that they would release all the hostages on numerous occasions since October 17, 2023. Okay? For a permanent ceasefire, permanent cessation of hostilities. And Hamas has also said that they would dissolve their political power and their military as well, as long as there is a standing military to defend the Gaza Strip and abide by international law. This is a perfectly understandable demand to make for a country, for a population that is under belligerent occupation and is experiencing a fucking genocide. Just like it is perfectly valid for Ukraine to deny Russian requests to dissolve its military. And Russia is not doing a genocide. Russia is still doing an incredibly bloody annexation campaign, but Russia is not doing a genocide, right? And even then, it is perfectly understandable for Ukraine to want to maintain its sovereignty and not remove its military. That would be fucking insane. That is a death sentence. If they were to do that, then you would see Russia doing a genocide, potentially. To the genocide, to the final stage, Netanyahu's stated plan for the final stage of the genocide that includes forcibly removing the population from Gaza. Exactly. When they talk about disarming the Palestinians, not only Hamas, the Palestinians, it means that they want the Palestinians to surrender. And when you surrender, you will have to accept the will of the occupier. I just want to say, as a Palestinian, seeing you relentlessly continue to talk about Palestine when so many people, even leftists, don't exactly keep it as a main focus of theirs, doesn't go unnoticed, is one of the few places where I just don't feel fucking forsaken. Yes. Hamdan said that Hamas was surprised to witness Egyptian mediators present an Israeli plan that included terms about total demilitarization of Gaza. Why were we astonished to see them talking about this issue? Because it's an Israeli issue, and as a mediator, you're not supposed just to admit any suggestion from the Israeli side. You have to deal with that. You have to talk directly to the Israelis and say, this will not work, Hamdan said. If Hamas said, we want Netanyahu to hand power to give up Tel Aviv to the Palestinians, for example, they will directly answer, this will not happen. Why are they not talking to the Israelis in the same way? Hamdan said that the Palestinians have both a moral obligation and a legal mandate under international law to employ armed resistance to fight an Israeli occupation that is repeatedly ruled illegal in international courts and is condemned as a system of apartheid by the world's leading human rights organizations. This, by the way, is 100% correct. This is correct, okay? Saying this correct thing regardless of whether it's coming from the mouth of a Hamas official, it does not change the reality at all. It's just, this is correct. They are right. He is right for saying this. And I say this as well. And in the same way, when I say the Houthi militant resistance to implement a blockade in the Red Sea, or to make the genocide of Palestinians costly to Israel, is the morally correct position. And not only the morally correct position, but the correct position under international law. Like, this is something that people should be doing. It is the appropriate and correct thing to do. If you call that a defense of terrorism or whatever the fuck, like, I'm sorry, you're delusional. You can try to package it in any way, shape, or form that you want to, and try to silence this truth, but this is the reality. There's never been a moment where resistance against any sort of imperial power, settler colonial violence, or whatnot has not been considered terrorism, has not been considered to be illegal. Of course it's going to be considered illegal by Western powers that are aligned with Israel. Of course. Of course. You say, so terrorism is justified. I say it's not. It's not terrorism. Okay? This is not like what Hamas and other formations of Palestinian resistance did, just like the Nat Turner Rebellion during chattel slavery, would be considered terrorism. Okay? An act of terror. That is correct. Having said that, every single thing that they've done in terms of resisting against Israeli occupation, which Israel is, again, a belligerent occupier of the Gaza Strip and bombed the Gaza Strip into oblivion, conducting a genocidal operation in the Gaza Strip, that is the actual terrorism. That is the real terrorism. And that is a far more consequential and far worse act of terrorism than October 7. They've done multiple October 7s every fucking week at this point. Okay? You can't talk about de-weaponizing the nation who is currently under occupation while they're occupied by the most powerful army in the region, he said. Hamas did not invent the resistance for Palestine. In fact, the Palestinians resisted the British occupation, and since then, the Israeli occupation for decades. Talking about de-weaponizing the Palestinians, it will not solve the problem. The new generation will fight because you are oppressing the nation all the time. So there's no option for Palestinians to get rid of this occupation without resistance. No option. Hamas has repeatedly proposed arrangements to end the occupation since the early 1990s, and Israel rejected them all. Last week, it dismissed Hamas's most recent offer, which would have seen all Israeli captives in Gaza returned to Israel as a part of a multi-year deal. They have rejected it, and they may reject it another time. But this is also an answer for the international community when they keep asking the Palestinians, okay, how can we solve this problem? Hamdan explained, you can't solve the problem by talking about the security of Israel. You have to solve the problem by talking about the rights of Palestinians who are giving you the option, which can fit exactly within international law, with the international resolutions, which can solve the problem and give Palestinians, give the Palestinian people their rights. Hamdan also outlined Hamas's rationale for offering a 5 to 7 year truce with Israel, known as Hudna in Arabic. The main goal for this long-term Hudna is that each side has to believe that he will not be attacked by the other side, which can at least generate a kind of security. And it's a chance to build trust that there may be a chance for a kind of stability and security, he said. That was the experience, for example, in South Africa. It was the experience in Vietnam. It was the experience with every situation of occupation, not only the Palestinian situation. So we are still committed to a very serious political idea, which is the long-term ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu does not want this because in this peace process, in this cessation of hostility, Palestinians will return back to increased demand for their own sovereignty, especially now when Americans and the Western world is completely aware of their plight. I haven't seen any new polling on this beyond the unfavorability of Israel, but I suspect that if you were to ask the Americans now and Western nations now, their populations, if you were to poll them on, is Israel committing a genocide in Gaza, the numbers would be insane. Like unheard of in comparison to, is Israel an apartheid state? If they asked that question maybe 5 years ago when Israel still was very much an apartheid state. This is the real fear, because once the military pressure is done, once there's no more military pressure, all of a sudden people are going to look at what Israel has done in Gaza. Western media is going to be able to enter the Gaza Strip. Do you understand how damaging that would be to Netanyahu's goals of ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip? This is the reason why they cannot stop the military conquest here. They cannot stop it. Israel does not want the U.S. talking to Hamas. We know that already. served as representative in Iran and Lebanon as his chief international relations. He was one of the top advisors to Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated by Israel last summer in Tehran. In a wide-ranging interview, Western media will not enter Gaza. I'm saying that if there was a 7-year ceasefire implemented in the aftermath of such a negotiation, then yes, there would be media allowed in the Gaza Strip. What are you talking about? Media used to be able to go into the Gaza Strip in the past. That's why friends of the show like Hind Hassan have been able to secure interviews with Yahya Sinwar. The last ever Western media interview with Yahya Sinwar was conducted by Hind Hassan. That was in the Gaza Strip. That's where it happened. That's where it took place. People used to be able to go to the Gaza Strip. What's the name? Daniel Day-Lewis wrote about his experiences in Gaza in 2005, where he went and he visited and he saw and he was shocked at the Israeli occupation as depravity. In 2005, he went and he wrote about it. Anthony Bourdain went to the Gaza Strip. So, yeah. What is this? Did you already talk about the link I just sent? It just got on?
So everything...
What? No, that was discarded. We'll talk about that as well. The anti-BDS federal level legislation has been discarded at this point, I think. Yeah. All right, let's continue. In the wide-ranging interview, Hamdan said that Hamas believes the January ceasefire agreement would have been unlikely had Donald Trump not won the U.S. election. I think it helped. If Kamala Harris won the elections, I think it would be the same policy of the Biden administration, which supported the Israelis totally. They made themselves a part of the war and fight against the Palestinians, he said. We know that Trump people, they have done a good job in order to make the January ceasefire happen, but it's not enough. We have to be honest and serious. It's not enough. It's ironic because this was my assessment of the situation as well, even though I think he's glazing. He's trying to glaze Trump. He's trying to do the fucking Putin thing to Trump. He's like, yeah, he's good guy Trump. He did that for us so that he hopes that a little bit of kind sentiment expressed in the direction of Trump will go a long way in terms of Trump being more amenable to the very reasonable demands being made by Hamas. Hassan Gay. Nice. Hamdan rejected what he called the Israeli propaganda term to describe what should happen in Gaza the day after the war ends. The Israelis, they've used this the day after term in order to convince everyone what will happen in Gaza is that they will take over the situation within a few weeks and they will get rid of the resistance and there'll be issue of some people who are living on the land of Gaza, he said. There is a day after the genocide stopped, and this day is supposed to be a Palestinian day, a Palestinian national day, because we have stopped the genocide and we have decided by ourselves, the Palestinians, what we are supposed to do. Hamdan said, once a political solution is reached to end the genocide, Hamas would be willing to relinquish governance of Gaza to an independent body of Palestinians or a technocratic committee. There was a suggestion from the Egyptian side. Hold on 1 second. There was a suggestion from the Egyptian side to have committee leaders, independent leaders from Gaza, to take control in Gaza for a while, and then we can go to general elections. We've said yes, because if they were nationalists and they're working for Gaza's benefit and the people's, why not have them, Hamdan said. He added that Hamas and other Palestinian political parties had put forward 40 to 45 names to the Palestinian Authority as nominees for a 15-member body to assume control of Gaza once Hamas formally steps down. They have not received any answers. So, you know, they are willing to step aside as well. So remember this. Whenever people say like, oh, Hamas, if they lay down their arms or whatever the fuck, like, oh, Israel will stop doing genocide. That's not the case at all. Okay? If Hamas stepped aside from governance in Gaza is not the real point of contention here. What Israel wants to do is full-blown extermination. They do not want Palestinians to be on the Gaza Strip. This is the Israeli government's position. Now let's look at what the Israeli population's position is on this. Channel 13 poll today, 46% of Israelis oppose the IDF operation. This is good because, as I've stated, Israel plans to occupy and flatten all of Gaza, right? This is the new thing that they're, well, not the new thing. They've been doing this, but like this is the official confirmation, right? They voted on it. They said, yes, we're doing it. We're going forward with it. Now it's in full display in 4K. In a way where like even Jake Tapper or Dana Fash cannot avoid talking about this, okay? Because remember, I can say this every fucking day of the week, but it doesn't matter, right? Dropsite News can do coverage on this. It doesn't matter. Democracy Now! Can do coverage on this. It doesn't matter. But this is the type of shit that the New York Times has to report on. And when the New York Times reports on this, all of a sudden, your mom and dad are going to hear about it. And there is no way to fundamentally massage the narrative here that they want to do permanent occupation. Okay? And an ethnic cleansing campaign. Maybe they won't say it's a full-blown ethnic cleansing campaign, but, you know, it makes it a lot harder to avoid that reality, to avoid that ultimate goal that they want. Israel plans to occupy and flatten Gaza, all of Gaza, if no hostage ceasefire deal is reached by the end of President Trump's trip to the Middle East 2 weeks from now. And Channel 13 poll says, I take it you haven't seen the New York Times headline today about this? Oh, no. How did they fucking cover it? Oh, no. 46% of Israelis oppose the IDF operation. 39% support it. 53% think Netanyahu pushes the operation for political survival. 57% think the operation endangers the hostages. So not exactly great. A little too close to the 50-50 for my comfort. Okay? The first article that pops up, Netanyahu warns of oh my God, dude. They use every fucking brain cell that they have to massage the narrative as aggressively as they can. Netanyahu warns of intensive escalation in Gaza campaign. Holy shit, dude. This is utterly ridiculous. Oh my Lord. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that a new plan calls for a forceful entry into the territory and would involve Palestinians relocating to the south. Forceful entry. Yuck. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Of all, if America is
this justified by saying their only goal is to go after Hamas? No, that's the justification that Israel tries to place. But the New York Times knows better. The New York Times also has legal experts that they pay money to that know international humanitarian law. Okay, they know international human rights law. They know that. It's not like they are oblivious to this reality. NPR covered it better than the New York Times did, where they said the humanitarian aid distribution scheme that the American government is trying to do alongside Israel is literally a direct violation of international humanitarian law. It is a war crime. You cannot have the military do aid distribution and pick and choose who you're giving fucking aid to. That is ridiculous. Also, Trump wants to defund NPR, by the way, which is, oh my God, it makes me so mad. Okay. Israel is heading for another disaster in Gaza fueled by Netanyahu's delusional plans. This is from Amos Harel. If you want to understand a more liberal Zionist perspective on this, okay? The expanded Gaza offensive approved by the cabinet is likely to fail, leading to prolonged entanglement and heavy deaths of soldiers, hostages, and Palestinians without defeating Hamas. Netanyahu follows the far right while IDF leadership hopes for Trump's intervention. Let me be blunt. We are marching into another disaster in the Gaza Strip. If U.S. President Donald Trump opts to stay out of the matter during his visit to the Gulf next week, Israel will begin escalating its military operations in Gaza once he flies back to Washington. Even The Onion couldn't come up with this stuff. What is this? It's gone. Yeah, they're trying to defund. They are trying to defund PBS and defund NPR. It is fucking ridiculous. Let's finish.
Is not
this
part
first.
of that international pressure.
No, I mean, it's a total collapse of international diplomacy, of global solidarity, of sanity.
It's 2 months since Israel stopped allowing aid into Gaza, and that obviously affects the hostages as well as the people of Gaza. What are your people on the ground telling you the situation is now?
I have nearly 100 colleagues on the ground inside Gaza, and they say starvation is spreading, disease is spreading, there is no clean. We are, Norwegian Refugee Council, providing clean drinking water to tens of thousands of people. We will have fuel for another week of doing that. It will collapse. All of the bakeries have closed. The distribution points have stopped functioning. There is no aid in Gaza now because there's been a 2 months blockade. I remember when Assad in Syria did the same. I mean, it was incredible, the outcry in London, in Washington, in Berlin, in Paris, and there was massive sanctions against Assad for doing that. Where's the outrage now when Netanyahu is doing
exactly? I mean, so much worse.
Zionists.
Arab states never ordered the expulsion of inhabitants with Professor Joseph Mossad. We can have that conversation later, but I do want to. How Israel won the West, the big picture is an hour-long documentary on it. We can get to that later when we go back to the Gaza segment. But the reason as to why, I mean, I wanted to cover the top level issues here, since Israel's moving in this direction. There is some good news. Let's take a look at this good news. Felony charges against the University of Michigan pro-Palestinian protesters have been dismissed. This, of course, comes after the FBI, in coordination with Dana Nessel, with Democrat Attorney General Dana Nessel, in a state run by the Democratic governor, who is now, Big Gretch, who is now a Trump ally, seemingly, who keeps finding herself accidentally alongside Donald Trump, issued a raid in coordination with the FBI on American citizens. Okay? On American citizens. What? Israel and America are starving Gaza? Wow, Assad is bad. That guy's a joke. I mean, he's trying to expose the hypocrisy. That's all he's doing when he talks about that. Anyway, Michigan judge dismisses felony charges against pro-Palestine student protesters after Attorney General Nessel's controversial intervention. A Washtenaw County judge has dismissed all charges against 7 University of Michigan students arrested during a pro-Palestinian encampment last spring, closing a months-long legal battle sparked by the state attorney general's controversial decision to pursue felonies after local prosecutors declined. Remember, local prosecutors were like, these are student protesters. What the fuck are you doing? We are not going to pursue felony charge against student protesters that are protesting against Israel. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Well, Attorney General Dana Nessel said, nope, we are going to do that. Remember when she said that she was going to do that? These are Americans, by the way. These are American citizens who were student protesters. That's why they couldn't detain them with an immigration enforcement action in the way that Donald Trump has done so far. Donald Trump's State Department has done so far. Okay? Remember, a severe escalation of civil liberties, okay? A severe escalation of civil liberties in this country, a severe violation of the First Amendment conducted by a blue attorney general in a under the leadership of the Democratic Party at the time with a Democratic governor. And Rashida Tlaib was right to call this out and said, why this double standard? Why this double standard for student protesters? We've never done this for Black Lives Matter protesters. We've never done this for any protesters at all. Why this double standard? And what did Dana Nessel go and do? Dana Nessel turned around and said, wow, Rashida Tlaib, you're being quite anti-Semitic. After all, I'm Jewish. How dare you imply that there is a double standard here? Rashida Tlaib was right and was vindicated time and time again, as she will continue to be vindicated time and time again. Dana Nessel turned around and implied that Rashida Tlaib was anti-Semitic for calling out this hypocrisy, this double standard. Dana Bash, also known as Dana Fash, on CNN, alongside Jake Tapper, also known as Jake Yapper, turned around and also attacked Rashida Tlaib. They had to retract some of those statements for the record. Yes, Dana Nessel is the one who dismissed those charges. Just wait, okay? Wait for the whole story. I know, you're spoiling it. I know what happened. It wasn't the county judge. The drop site got it wrong, okay? Just wait. I'm going to get to it. Hold on. The reason why she did this, aside from smearing Rashida Tlaib and calling her an anti-Semite, which is something that I think many people in this community are very familiar with whenever someone, especially a Muslim person, God forbid a Muslim person says, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Okay. All of a sudden it's like, oh, it's because I'm Jewish? Is that what it is? Oh, what? Oh, dual loyalty tropes? Is that what you're doing? It's like, no, you're the one who's behaving in a fucking insane manner. This doesn't make any sense. All 7 pleaded not guilty and were represented by a team of Dearborn-based attorneys working for free who cited deep concern over civil liberties and the state's criminalization of student dissent. Attorney General Nessel had initially pushed the charges. The felony charges were filed by Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel after the local Ouachita County Prosecutor's Office refused to bring them. Nessel reportedly intervened at the request of University of Michigan regents, sparking backlash from civil rights groups and elected officials who questioned the political motivations behind the prosecution. Hassan isn't anti-Semitic. Anyone who thinks otherwise, a dumb baby head. No, they're just like motivated. They're motivated into believing that because that makes it much easier for them to feel like they're actually the correct, they're arriving at the correct way to defend the pro-Palestinian position. or rather that it exposes their internal contradictions, and they don't like that. Yeah, but two things can be true at once. Yes, I know two things can be true at once, except this is, oh, they can be dumb and also motivated. Yes, you're right. All charges have been dropped. On Monday, Nessel's office moved to dismiss the remaining charges, both felony and misdemeanor, effectively closing the case. Civil liberties groups say the case should have never been brought. Felony charges against the 7 University of Michigan pro-Palestinian protests were dismissed by Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, not by a judge. Nessel's office moved to dismiss the charges and the court accepted the motion. Nessel said she stands by her original decision to prosecute, claiming a reasonable jury could have found the students guilty, but she concluded that continuing the case was no longer a prudent use of my department's resources. The reason why they did this, by the way, the reason why they did this against American citizens who were student protesters at the University of Michigan, okay? The reason why they did this was to engage in a chilling effect on speech. That is precisely the reason why they did this. It was never prudent. It was fucking bullshit. And it was a great misuse of funds. But not only was it a great misuse of funds, it was a severe escalation. It was a severe escalation that erroneously and perhaps in the most, it was the most severe violation of the First Amendment in the United States of America, being conducted by a Democrat attorney general in a state that's run by a Democrat governor. And it started under the Biden administration. Look, here's my coverage from September. Is sloppy in the way that he tries to propagandize these positions. He has notoriously been a major enemy to the likes of Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib far before October 7. He is one of the most biased and one of the biggest Islamophobic assholes. Here's the investigative reporter from Detroit Metro Times. Here's the full remarks from the Detroit Metro Times, by the way, the article. This is a move that's going to set a precedent, and it's unfortunate that a Democrat made that move, Tlaib said. You would expect that from a Republican, but not from a Democrat, and that's really unfortunate. It was very inclusive. It was diverse, very loving, Tlaib, Detroit Democrat says. When I visited, I remember they were talking about the Armenian genocide and what we learned from that. It was very powerful. I wish University of Michigan President Santa Ono could see his students as people that just want to save lives, no matter their faith or ethnicity. We've had the right to dissent, the right to protest, Tlaib says. We've done it for climate, the immigrant rights movement, for black lives, and even around the issues of injustice among water shutoffs. But it seems that the Attorney General has decided if the issue was Palestine, she was going to treat it differently. And that alone speaks volumes about possible biases within the agency she runs. Rashida Tlaib made no mention of Attorney General Nessel's Jewish heritage. She suggested that there were possible biases against pro-Palestinian voices in her office based on her decision to charge the protesters. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel leveled the same false claims against Rashida Tlaib, accused her of being anti-Semitic. This was 3 days ago. Rashida's religion should not be used in a cartoon to imply that she's a terrorist. It's Islamophobic and wrong. Just as Rashida should not use my religion to imply I cannot perform my job fairly as Attorney General. It is anti-Semitic and wrong. Jake Tapper has done this so many fucking times when it comes to black and brown congresspersons, but specifically Muslim congresspersons. He always gets away with it because Islamophobia is normalized in American society, in especially the post 9/11 universe. That is precisely the reason why he can say whatever the fuck he wants about. Yep, straight up. Straight up. Anyway, we're moving away from this to talk about Trump's calls for 100% tariffs and also the disastrous interview that he conducted. I have to go sign a piece of paper real quick.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. The president saying that he will now put 100% tariff on movies that, as he puts it, are coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. He says we want movies made in America again. It's not precisely clear whether this includes all foreign language movies that are shown, for instance, in art house cinemas, whether it includes foreign productions on streaming services, or whether it includes all movies that include some aspect of production that are outside of the United States. Because movies, a lot like cars, include various components that are produced in different countries. In a lot of cases, you know, if a movie is scripted in the U.S., cast in the U.S., it might be shot outside of the U.S., in part because a number of other countries include some tax incentives for production of motion pictures. And so the president here is identifying a real issue. You know, talk to anyone in Los Angeles, they do say that a lot of the jobs associated with the motion picture industry have dried up, in part because it's cost prohibitive to shoot movies in California. The president here clearly trying to remedy this issue as part of this broader effort to move production of all kinds of goods and services back to the United States. The president says he does think that new trade deals could be announced this week as part of his effort to reorient global trade. Wolf.
All right, Kevin Liptak over at the White House. Thanks very much. And Pamela, this is personal for me because when I was in Mission Impossible Fallout, the film, they flew me to London for my scene, to film my scene in London. So if Trump gets his way, you couldn't do that anymore. You got to film everything in the United States.
Right, which a lot of people in Hollywood and elsewhere would applaud, right? Not going overseas and having that money be here in the United States, which is what he's doing. But as Kevin pointed out, there's a lot of practical issues with this that would need to be worked out. But interesting. Only you can say that, Wolf, right? I was in Mission Impossible. I had to fly to London.
There are a few other actors in Mission Impossible. Well, they all flew to London.
That's right. That's pretty cool.
I was in James Bond Skyfall, too.
I know. How many movies have you been in?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go, folks.
Movie World reacting to a new announcement by the US president ordering a 100% tariff on foreign films shown in the United States. In a post on Truth Social, Donald Trump said Hollywood is being devastated by productions filmed outside the US and is likening that to a national security threat.
Other nations, a lot of them, have stolen our movie industry. And I'm saying if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in. And not only that, governments are actually giving big money. I mean, they're supporting them financially. So that's sort of a threat to our country in a sense.
Eric Gardner is a founding partner and correspondent for Puck News. Joins us now. I often hear you on one of the podcasts on what is
Bro said anime is a national security threat. Okay. I mean, this is the most anti-anime shit I've ever seen. This is literally directly killing Asmongold's entire fan base. Okay. Straight up. IP to the Asmongoldians who have found themselves in this very tricky position where they no longer are saying, yeah, based. Not based. Okay? Not based at all. It turns out, no, this is not based. Don't care, didn't ask. Still going to say, yeah, based.
A really good and busy slate. Congratulations on that. Eric, good to have you. First up is a very simple question. Does this proposal even make sense when film production is so global and so sort of intertwined? And films, ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, are not goods. I think they fall under the sort of, the pillar of services, right? Which is generally not what tariffs are all about. So explain what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to explain what's going on. I'm not sure whether Trump himself knows what's going on. I mean, when we're talking about tariffs, you're usually talking about goods that are shipped into the country, and at the point of entry, that's when the taxes are put on. But when you talk about movies, there's no such thing as them being shipped into the country. It's intellectual property. They get screened everywhere. So exactly how is the tariff going to be imposed? Is it going to be on movie tickets? Is it going to be on producers paying the fees? That's just one of the problems. There's also the question of what is a movie that's produced overseas? Are we talking about where the funding is coming from? Is it about, where is it shot? What happens if it's shot in the United States, but there's some post-production, some special effects over in Asia? Does that, qualify as a foreign film? So there are all these questions. Right now, I'm looking at this executive order, the Truth Social post, and it's very vague. I think there are a lot of people in Hollywood very confused right now.
It's interesting. I mean, even here in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, where there have been a lot of, pretty significant films made of late, or at least parts of them shot here. They offer a rebate here, and that's as they do in many parts of the world. And that's one of the things that Trump seems to be going after here, rather than what the California governor has been suggesting is helping out Hollywood by actually offering the sort of tax.
This is unserious and just a distraction from Gaza, right? Yes, absolutely. Well, not a distraction from Gaza, but just like a distraction in general. But also because it's just classic Trump. He's a maniac. He comes up with like a maniacal thing out of nowhere, out of the blue. I feel like it also paired nicely with his I'm going to reopen Alcatraz statement. I feel like he just saw a movie. He saw like Escape from Alcatraz or whatever, and he was like, we gotta make movies again in America like we used to. And then he chose to, you know, that was what was playing at fucking movie night at Mar-a-Lago. And he was like, and I have a brilliant idea. We're gonna do tariffs in order to do movies in America. Movie magic time, you know? It just like doesn't make any fucking sense. The reason why CNN is defending it is because we do have a robust industry here in the United States of America. It's one of the fucking more competent industries that we have in terms of movies, but it is so psychotic to do because it's not just about production for American film. You're all of a sudden trying to shut out any sort of international movies from entering the American marketplace. It's so dumb. Once again, a totally ridiculous statement. A totally ridiculous statement because like it's not directional. It's not saying like we need to move the VFX industry back to the United States, for example. That's like that is a sectoral tariff. It's like applied specifically to one part of the production process. That's fine. That's valid. I like that. Like, what are you? What are you gonna do? Lord of the Rings? What are you gonna do? Film it in fucking Brooklyn? Like, where are you gonna film Lord of the Rings? What are you supposed to do? You know? Sorry, we had to film it in fucking Utah, you know? We're filming Dune, this time in Detroit. Lord of the Onion Rings.
Breaks that you see in places like Abu Dhabi. So there is a way of supporting the business. It just doesn't make sense necessarily as far as you're concerned, and I can't get my head around it by using tariffs. Look, take Netflix as a key example. That stock is taking a hit from what's been an all-time high. After this news, let's bring up the live market number for you. Netflix last year spent more than half of its budget on international production. 70% of its 300 million subscribers are outside the United States. Its stock down about 3.5% or more today. You have to assume that's mostly on this. Look, the markets are off slightly today, a bit of profit sharing going on. But, I mean, that's a significant drop for Netflix today. What impact would this tariff have on consumers? How would it change things for the everyday viewer and for an organization like Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty unclear right now. I mean, if we're talking just about movies, well, Netflix does most of its, work in television shows. So it's not clear whether or not Netflix is impacted. And if you're, imposing tariffs on movie tickets, maybe that means that Netflix is in a better position. Maybe it means that people, stay home.
Oh, God. It's so much, bro. So much of commentary in the media nowadays is basically just trying to make sense of the Brandonized insanity of Donald Trump. Just everyone for like a week after Donald Trump says something absolutely nutty will just go around and be like, what did he mean by this? I don't know. Maybe he wants to implement tariffs on ticket sales for movies. Maybe it's maybe he wants to do tariffs on Netflix, like Netflix productions. Like, what happens when one aspect of the production is overseas, but the production itself is an American production? Does that get hit by tariffs? Like, how do we do this? How can we make this happen? And it's like, sometimes you just gotta be like, he's crazy. Sometimes, I mean, I get why they have to do this. I don't think Trump put this much thought into it. That's all I'm saying. I can't in good conscience sit here and assume that Trump put any thought into this beyond movies used to be beautiful when they made it in America. Must make American movies great again. No more DEI. No more DEI in movies and American-made movies. That's right. Trump watched a K-drama last night and panicked. This is too good. This is too good. The emotions, the raw power, they're so beautiful. We cannot compete. We must make these Koreans American Koreans. We will make K-dramas, but in America, we'll call it A-drama. Drama. Give John Voight $1 billion and then give Mel Gibson an American citizenship so that he can make the Jesus movie again and again. It's my favorite movie.
Don't go to the movie theater and just binge watch on Netflix. So until we have details about how this is going to be imposed, it's hard to really game out who's winning and who's losing.
Yeah, this is what he said when Parasite won. By the way, how bad were the Academy Awards this year, do you see? And the winner is a movie from South Korea. What the hell was that about? We got enough problems with South Korea on trade. And on top of it, they give it the best movie of the year. Was it good? Then he added, let's get Gone with the Wind. Can we get Gone with the Wind back, please? That was the best picture winner in 1940, 80 years ago. Sunset Boulevard. So many great movies. I'm telling you, bro. Okay. Dude, literally what happened is Mar-a-Lago movie night. Okay. Mar-a-Lago movie night. He watches like a Alcatraz movie and he thinks to himself, I have a brilliant idea. I was looking away and I thought you were improvising this. No, this is something that he actually said, which is pretty funny because the thing that I improvised is not off base from what he actually said. Yeah. He literally watched Escape from Alcatraz and said, we need to do all of this. And that's the reason why he said, reopen Alcatraz and make movies great again. Make movies American again. Put Scarlett Johansson to play convincingly an Asian woman. The Asians don't actually need to be Asian. Scarlett Johansson has range. She's beautiful, she's pretty, she's blonde. Why can't we make ScarJo play the role? And maybe Gal Gadot. What a bombshell. Oh, that's a foxy woman. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. No, this is fake news. This can't be real. Guess what was on TV in South Florida on Saturday night? 1979 Clint Eastwood film, Escape from Alcatraz. No, this is a meme. No, ain't no fucking way, dude. No. Oh my God, he is demented. Oh my God, he's fucking demented. No. This is fake, right? Like, there's no way this is real. This is just someone trying to make a joke. I don't think that's the case. No shot. Oh my God. The Independent. Trump announced Alcatraz reopening just hours after Escape from Alcatraz aired on a South Florida PBS station. Dude, he's like a baby. He's got the mind of a child. He's got the mind of an infant. Reporter, how did you decide to reopen Alcatraz? I was supposed to be a movie maker. Nobody ever escaped and almost got there, but I made this joke yesterday. I made this joke verbatim yesterday. Oh my God. I made this joke bar for bar yesterday, dude. Oh my God, what is happening?
To reopen Alcatraz. Can you walk us through that decision?
Did I say what?
To reopen Alcatraz. How will you use it? How did you come up with the idea?
Well, I guess I was supposed to be a movie maker. We started with the movie making and we'll end. I mean, it represents something very strong, very powerful in terms of law and order. Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate, right? Alcatraz, Sing Sing and Alcatraz, the movies. But it's right now a museum, believe it or not. A lot of people go there. It housed the most violent criminals in the world, and nobody ever escaped. One person almost got there, but they, as you know the story, they found his clothing rather badly ripped up, and it was a lot of shark bites, a lot of problems. Nobody's ever escaped from Alcatraz, and just represented something strong having to do with law and order. We need law and order in this country, and so we're going to look at it. Some of the people up here are going to be working very hard on that, and we had a little conversation. I think it's going to be very interesting. We'll see.
Someone clipped me literally doing bar for bar this bit about sharks eating people that are escaping Alcatraz yesterday. I literally made this joke. Oh my God.
If we can bring it back in large form, add a lot. But I think it represents something. Right now it's a big hulk that's sitting there rusting and rotting. Very, you look at it, it's sort of, you saw that picture that was put out, it's sort of amazing. But it sort of represents something that's both horrible and beautiful.
No, this is from today. I'm saying I made this joke. I made this joke basically verbatim yesterday when I was like, Escape from Alcatraz, beautiful movie. Nobody could escape from Alcatraz, as you know. That's why I'm bringing it back. We're putting more sharks in the water. As you know, sharks in the water. Oh, this is, as many people say, no one has ever escaped Alcatraz. I would have been able to escape it. If I was in Alcatraz, I would have ran away. I would have swam away from the sharks. And then I would have gotten on a boat, but not if the boat has an electric. Okay, I added some extra jokes onto it because I did the Trump bit about sharks versus the electric boat motor, because everybody knows between the boat, God forbid it sinks, between the boat and getting electrocuted or the sharks, I'm not so certain I would take the boat. I would probably take the shark, which is my biggest enemy. I would take the shark. I go back and forth on whether this is actually funny or scary. Okay? Because like I don't know if this is funny or if it's just like incredibly scary that the president's brain is so demented that like a joke that I made yesterday becomes an official presidential decree only 24 hours later. This is not like, it's funny, haha, but also, what the fuck? This guy is the president. Not so funny when you think about it, you know?
And strong and miserable, weak. It's got a lot of qualities that are interesting, and I think they make a point. Okay.
He's watching the VODs. Yeah, Trump is a VOD watcher. This is gross. Okay. This is, yeah, I saw this before. Not saying anyone should, but I bet you could convince Trump to reopen Alcatraz in under 20 minutes. Nobody ever escaped. I talked to Clint Eastwood and he said, maybe, but we're going to bring it back. Those Californian liberals are going to pay for it too. I mean, this guy's the true prophet, okay? Son Al-Ghaib. Oh, so now it's bad when the president listens to his constituents. There's no pleasing you people. Quick, someone show Trump a bug's life. Those bugs, those ants, they're so beautiful. They're so good. They're so good. They're so hardworking, those ants. And we got to make the factories look like the ants. The ants are going to need to rise up against their masters. It's like the liberals. The liberals are basically the big bugs trying to kill the ants. Keep RFK Jr. away from Plague X. The locusts. I like to think the locusts are Chinese. The grasshoppers hopping around. The ants must beat the Chinese. I'm having too much fun with this fucking idiot being the president. It's not fun, nor is it funny, okay? I think this is devastating. I want to make that clear.
But we got to take it seriously. Obviously, Trump is all about tariffs. You're right. There are incentive ways to drive production in the United States. It's definitely a real issue. There used to be a vibrant economy in Hollywood that was based entirely on people producing movies and TV. And these days, a lot of that happens overseas. But, the use of tariffs to rectify that is kind of strange.
All right, with us now is Justin Wolfers, professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan, and Art Hogan, chief market strategist at B. Riley Financial. Professor, I want to start with you with this announcement or statement President Trump made overnight of placing 100% tariffs on foreign-made films. Now, it's unclear if he's talking about literally like foreign films that are in a foreign language shot and produced overseas and then sold here in the U.S., or if he's talking about the Avengers shot on a soundstage in London there. Big picture, Professor, what happens if this trade war expands to services and intellectual property?
Yeah, so that's the really big news here. I think actually there's two pieces of news. One, the president has opened a whole new front in the trade war, because the thing about movies is...
Put a tariff on this guy. Moving on.
Yeah, please.
Trump blames grossly incompetent Newsom for Hollywood's problems when defending movie tariffs.
Can you explain a little bit about how you would implement tariffs on the film industry, kind of how that would work?
Well, that's a different story, but our film industry has been decimated by other countries taking them out, and also by incompetence, like in Los Angeles. The governor is a grossly incompetent man. He's just allowed it to be taken away from, Hollywood. Hollywood doesn't do very much of that business. They have the nice sign and everything's good, but they don't do very much. A lot of it's been taken to other countries, and a big proportion. And I'm actually going to meet with some because, there's some advantages, I guess, and I'm not looking to hurt the industry. I want to help the industry. But they're given financing by other countries. They're given a lot of things. And the industry was decimated. If you look at how little is done in this country now, you think we were the ones. We used to do 100, not long ago, 100%. Now we do almost like very little. It's shocking. Are you in that business too? Because he's in so many businesses. You could explain it, but it's not a good situation. So we're going to meet with the industry. I want to make sure they're happy with it because we're all about jobs. That's all what it's very important. It's a big industry, but it's an industry now that's it's really left. It's abandoned the USA where it started, and we'll get it back. Yeah, please. Yes, ma'am.
We're not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics. You mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody made up a picture of me dressed like the Pope, and they put it out on the internet. That's not me that did it. I have no idea where it came from. Maybe it was AI, but I know nothing about it. I just saw it last evening. Actually, my wife thought it was cute. She said, "Isn't that nice?"
My question about
Actually, I would not be able to be married, though. That would be a lot. I'd have to the best of my knowledge, popes aren't big on getting married, are they? Not that we know of. No. I think it's the fake news media that, they're fakers.
My question, though, sir, was about the fact that it was put out on the White House account. Even though it was AI generated, it was a joke, it was a meme. Does it at all diminish the substance of the official White House account to have it go out on that particular
Give me a
channel?
break. It was just somebody did it in fun. It's fine. Have to have a little fun, don't you?
Here is the insane interview that he did with Meet the Press exclusive, where he had a bunch of horrifying moments, horrifying for those who have any semblance of conscience, where in some of the key moments he basically said things like, "I don't know about due process. It's kind of difficult to follow due process," things of that nature. So let's take a look.
Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here to mark your first 100 days in office. It has been an incredibly busy 100 days. You've signed more than 140 executive orders. You've been focused.
When he starts taking Q&As, we'll get to Trump live, by the way, because he's signing executive orders again, and he's most likely going to do a Q&A afterwards. But when the Q&A starts, we'll get to it. But before the Q&A, we'll listen to some of his statements here.
Focused on the border, the economy, foreign policy. What is your biggest goal in the next 100 days?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of results. We've already seen them on the border. We have the best border in the history of our country. It was 99.999, and nobody ever thought that was possible. In fact, Biden, if you remember, said he has to get legislation. And I said, no, you just need a new president. And I guess I was right. We have the best border we've ever had. We're doing great on illegal immigration. We are being hit hard by judges that I think they're trying to take away the power of the presidency. I was elected in a massive landslide and a big vote. We won the swing states. We won the popular vote. We won the district votes by tremendous numbers. We won everything. And one of the primary reasons I was elected was to get people out of our country that were allowed. We have prisoners, we have murderers, we have terrorists in our country, we have people from mental institutions that are seriously insane. They all came in through Biden's open border policy, and I was elected to get them out and to seal the border, but to get them out. And we'll have judges, they're activist judges, they're saying, well, you don't have the right to take out murderers and people that you don't even want to talk about. These are really some really bad criminal people, and they're here illegally. So, you know, they talk about your next question will be due process, but they talk about due process, but do you get due process when you're here illegally?
We're going to talk about all of that. We are going to talk about deportation, but I want to start on the economy, sir, which obviously the biggest issue for voters. We got new numbers today, better than expected job numbers.
Much better.
At the same time, the economy shrank in the first quarter. You've been arguing all week that this is President Biden's economy. Is this now your economy, sir?
Well, I think certain aspects of it are. Costs are. I was able to get down the costs, but even that, it takes a while to get them down, but we got them down good. We lost $5 to $6 billion a day with Biden, $5 to $6 billion. And I've got that down to a great number right now in a record time. You know, we're talking about 100 days. But just think of what that is. $5 billion a day we're losing on trade. And we were very tough with China, as you know. We put 145% tariff on. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And we've essentially cut off trade relationships by putting that much of a tariff on. And that's okay. We've gone cold turkey. That means that we're not losing. You know, we lost $1 trillion to China. $1 trillion. That means we're not losing $1 trillion when we go cold turkey because we're not doing business with them right now. And they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal very badly. We'll see how that all turns out, but it's got to be a fair deal. But think of it. We were losing $1 trillion. And that was a big part of the $5 million a day.
And I want to talk about China, but just staying on this idea of the economy. On the eve of your inauguration, the stock market spiked. You called it the Trump effect. Are you?
It spiked because I was elected president. Well, it didn't spike because of anybody else. It spiked because they see what I'm.
Yeah, and then now the market instability is also spiking in the opposite direction. There is one metric that's spiking: the volatility index, the VIX. As far as other parts of the market that are spiking, they're spiking in either direction. As a matter of fact, it just keeps going like this, depending on whatever the fuck he's saying that day. So, you know, it's still a spike. It's a spike. Let me tell you, it's a big spike. You hear about this VIX? Someone should get in on this VIX. Everyone keeps telling me the VIX, the volatility index, they're saying it's like a new technology, I think. Volatility sounds like a technological tool. You know, they call them groceries, I call them, as they call it. Volatility index, as they call them.
Going to do. They know what I'm going to do with the tariffs and everything else. And I think it's actually working out better than we anticipated. Did you see oil prices? Did you see gasoline is now below, in many cases, in many states, below $2 a gallon, $1.98, $1.99, $1.97?
Well, my question, sir, is when the stock market spiked, you said this is the Trump effect. When the numbers weren't so good earlier this week, you said it's the Biden effect. Are you only taking ownership of the good numbers and not the bad numbers?
I think he did a lot of very bad things, and despite some of the bad things, we're overcoming them. But he was bad on the border. He was bad on the economy. We had the worst inflation in the history of our country. Look, Biden gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. People, it didn't matter what they made because they were losing their shirt because of costs. Now take a look at what happened. Oil is down, gasoline is down, groceries are down, eggs. You were the one that asked me. You asked me about eggs. It was the first week. I didn't even know anything about what were you talking about. Egg prices were so high you couldn't buy eggs. They didn't have any eggs. And they said Easter is going to be a disaster. Well, we had Easter at the White House, and we had thousands of eggs, and they were down 87%.
Yeah, a lot of that, of course, spike was because of bird flu. But when does it become the Trump economy?
Why do you say that?
Well, tell me,
we had the same bird flu as he had.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now, and I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
Yeah, dude. Yes. Yes. You rarely ever hear such clarity, okay? Yeah, the good parts are me. The bad parts are Brandon. It's how it is. It is how it is. Well, okay, it's all bad. So what's up? It's all Brandon. It's all Brandon. How are his supporters defending this? Dude, at a certain point, you have to realize, it's no longer about, like, accurate information. It's no longer about exercising critical thinking. We have long passed that point. All politics is devolving into cults. This is something that you can experience even with like the debate that I had, the quote unquote debate that I had on Friday. Okay. Everything is turning into cults. Everything is basically turning into like, I parasocially love this person, Donald Trump. He is my GOAT. He is my king. He is my legend. He can do no wrong. Everything he says is awesome. Everything everyone else is saying about him is bad faith. That's how it is. Is how it fucking is. Okay? Look no further than the rest of the internet going, what the fuck was this guy up to on the Friday debate versus Ethan Klein's own community turning around and being like, you killed him, King. You destroyed him. And all of the edgelord, apolitical centrist commentary slop tubers running around being like, yeah, you fucking destroyed him when you conceded on virtually every point, including admitting to smearing him and consistently saying, oh, this is boring, let's move on, whenever you found yourself to be wrong, you know? I'll go so far as to say there is a cult-like aspect to what I do as well. The difference here, however, is that I try to reach a broad spectrum of different ideologies on a daily fucking basis and entertain back and forth from people who disagree with me. So, you know, you get to, when you're in here, you get to see a full spectrum of opinions.
Because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job on everything. From his auto pen, which I'm sure he knew nothing about some of the things he was supposedly signing, to immigration. You look at what happened with immigration, how bad it was. Think of it. We have murderers, 11,888 murderers. Many of them murdered more than one person. Think of that. And they're in our country. Now, we've gotten a lot of them out, and we know who many of them are, and we're on the hunt. But why would anybody do that? Why would anybody, who could do such a thing where they'd allow hundreds of thousands and even millions of people into our country who are criminals and murderers at the highest level? Who would do this?
But, sir, you acknowledge when you announced your tariffs, for example, the stock market dropped. It's been volatile. It has since gone up.
It is,
do you
but now
take
it's going up.
responsibility
Look at
for that?
today.
Yeah. Do you
Well,
take
look,
responsibility when it drops?
Ultimately, I take responsibility for everything, but I've only just been here for a little more than 3 months. But the stock market, look at what's happened in the last short period of time. Didn't it have 9 or 10 days in a row or 11 days where it's gone up? And the tariffs have just started kicking in. And we're doing really well. Psychologically, I mean, the fake news was giving me such press on the tariffs. The tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to be a very rich country.
So let's talk about the tariffs. And I want to ask you about something you said this week. Got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
You know what's really interesting? I'm sitting on a mountain of unopened artifacts, okay? Figurines that I did not even realize would become a goddamn chest of gold, okay? Like, can't really see from this angle on the camera, but like above, behind me, all over this room are figurines that are now going to be like $1,000 a pop. I never thought that this would be a moment where I could just be like, listen, dude, your line ass saying you don't invest. Yeah, I have invested. I've never even taken them out of the box. No boo-boo lemons. No boo-boo lemons. None of the boo-boo lemons. Boo-boo lemons, folks. Cutie Cinderella. She's a very nasty lady. Very nasty. Said so many nasty things about me. I made sure she can't get any boo-boo lemons at her deco den. No more la boo-boos.
What? No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls.
This is like, this is just like degrowth. I don't know. It's like, that's right. It's they're calling it degrowth. That's right. This is not a leftist not a Marxist, communist, fascist position. This is now the position of Trump.
Because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
When you say they could have $3 instead of $30, are you saying
I'm saying they don't need
Americans
$30.
could see empty store shelves?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
But you're basically saying there could be some supply shortages
basically
because
saying
of the
we don't have to
tariffs.
waste money on a trade deficit with China for things we don't need, for junk that we don't need.
Well, prices are already going up on some popular items,
whoa.
tires, strollers.
This is such a dishonest interview already. Prices are down on groceries. Prices are down for oil. Prices are down for all energy. Prices are down at tremendous numbers for gasoline. And let me tell you, when you have the big thing, what he did, he spent like a stupid person, which he was, but he spent like a very stupid person. And that was bad for inflation. But what really killed us with inflation was the price of energy. It went up to $3.90, even $4, and in California, $5 and $6, right? Okay. I have it down to $1.98 in many states right now. When you go that much lower on energy, which is ahead of my prediction, because I really thought I could get it down into the 250s. We have it down at $1.98 in numerous places. But when you say costs are going up, even mortgage rates are going down.
Well, but let me give you some examples. These are actual examples. So you're saying the prices that are going down, some prices are going up. Tires, strollers, some clothing in the wake of your tariffs.
Excuse me, that's peanuts compared to energy. Energy is 60% of the cost.
But sir, you
energy is the big.
You campaigned on a promise to bring prices down on day.
Well, I don't know. When
one.
you say strollers are going up, what kind of a thing? I'm saying that gasoline is going down. Gasoline is thousands of times more important than a stroller someplace.
But what do you say to Americans who say they voted for you because they want and they need relief right now?
And they're getting it.
Right now? What about those
even mortgage rates?
different items I just
mortgage
mentioned?
rates are going down, despite the fact that we have a stubborn Fed.
But you said even dolls could cost a couple bucks more.
Maybe they might, but you don't need to have, as I said, $35. You can have 2, 3, 4, and save a lot of money. We don't need to feed the beast.
I guess you're talking about this transition cost.
I never thought that in my entire life, I never thought I would hear a Republican American president say these fucking words, like advocating for degrowth openly. It's just like, yeah, why do you need so many treats? Like, this is so crazy. This is like, does he not realize that this is what allows Americans to not revolt? Like, the only thing that maintains American stability is a steady flow of treats. You take away our health care. You take away all of the social safety nets. The infrastructure is underwater. Every single day is another awful thing taking place in real time. People are horrified about the future and what it holds for them. But the one thing that keeps everyone alive, that maintains stability, is treats. And now Donald Trump, who some might even say ran on lowering the cost of treats and making them bountiful once again, turning around and saying, you don't want the treats. Oh my God, Kohei Saito said based. This is, Kohei Saito is a Japanese academic, Marxist academic, who is famously a big degrowth advocate. What a wild time to be alive, man.
How long should people expect that transition to last?
Comrade Trump is focusing on heavy industry instead of caving to bourgeois commodity fetishism. Welcome back, Comrade Stalin. Yeah.
I can't tell you that. I can tell you that we're making a lot of money. We're doing great. Again, we're losing more than 5.
Once again, every time Trump gets to say these things, it pisses me off and it makes me incredibly and uncontrollably jealous. I am red with envy because I'm imagining a world where Bernie Sanders is also doing similar things after developing a robust manufacturing base and saying, we're going to have some fiscal belt tightening. And I feel like if he were to come out and say that, like, there would be a Goldman Sachs assassin in the room. You know what I mean? They would send the CIA after him. I'm green with envy, not red with envy. Sorry. ESL. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. And Asman would be saying not based. Yeah. If you even say, yeah, if you even had a Democrat say this, that would get business plotted for sure. The MAGA communists are happy about this one for sure. I mean, oh God, we can't hear anything. What is happening here?
Listen.
Speaking of Asman, yeah, I saw this already.
Young lady, 10-year-old girl, 9-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl doesn't need $37. She could be very happy with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I would. Let's not waste a lot of time on this.
Fuck you, piece of shit. I hope your entire family goes down the same way you will. Walter Fart. Are you talking to Donald Trump? Sometimes I can't tell if like they're responding to what they see on the screen or if they're saying that about me. It's always interesting trying to understand where this is coming from, you know? Like, we're talking to you, R word. Okay. What did I do? Following says May 2nd, so not good faith. I mean, yeah, of course. He's like, fuck you, dude. How dare you talk about our base, glorious MAGA communist king, Donald Trump? He is advocating for degrowth. You fake ass monster.
$1 billion a day.
The children deserve less toys, dude. Shut the fuck up.
$5 billion a day. You don't talk about that. And right now, we're going to be at a point very soon where we're making money every day. Look.
How soon?
We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
What's the anger from this guy?
Now
Maybe
we're essentially
he'll tell us.
not doing business with China. Therefore, we're saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Very simple.
You take
so much of this process also revolves around not even like fixing the trade deficits or anything like that, but instead trying to get all of the other countries within our sphere of influence to slowly but surely decouple from China. They do not, like, America does not want China to be the manufacturing hub for the planet. And they are actively trying to fight back against it. It's fine if you take it to India. India is more controllable. Just don't work with China. That's the whole point. Because they're not going to actually bring garment manufacturing back to the United States. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think this is going to be able to, I don't think he's going to see much success in this regard.
To my next question, which is about China. They've been making a number of public statements.
Very positive statements the last 24 hours.
Well, and most recently, they said before talks could happen, the U.S. would need to remove unilateral tariffs. Would you consider dropping the tariffs to get China to the negotiating table?
No. They first of all, you're giving me a statement that was said a week ago. You're not giving the statement that was said today.
I have May 2nd Chinese Commerce Ministry.
Do you know what they said today?
The U.S. wants to negotiate.
Forward.
It should show sincerity by preparing to take actions in correcting its mistakes and canceling the unilateral tariffs.
They made, first of all, they made numerous statements.
They've made numerous statements.
You know how many people speak for China? It's like 50
They've made numerous
I
statements.
can give you a statement for any occasion.
Yes.
But they said today they want to talk. Look, China, and I don't like this. I'm not happy about this. China's getting killed right now. They're getting absolutely destroyed. Their factories are closing. Their unemployment is going through the roof. I'm not looking to do that to China.
So here's what I'll say. I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he actually had a really interesting analogy where basically right now it looks to be by Western analysts, and I don't think that this is, I don't agree with this analysis in general, but like the analysis is that China is on a three-legged stool and it's under a lot of pressure. You know, there's issues with its real estate market, and they have issues with their birth rate decline, and there's not a lot of great future prospect for China. This is the analysis from the Western world, right? From Western analysts. And what America is seeking to do is basically try and apply extra pressure, because this will most likely be the last moment that America will ever be able to apply pressure to China. Okay? They say this is the last moment that they will ever be able to apply pressure to China. It's the last moment where America has an opportunity. So Trump is doing this like incredibly cruel and a ridiculous scheme to try and force every other trade partner of China to decouple from China. The problem, however, is, and you might have noticed why I said this is America's last opportunity to do this, is because America is on a two-legged stool. So even I think Western analysts that cope about China's positioning on the global stage as a trade partner, they are still very aware of America's position on the global stage as well. That is precisely the reason why the arrogance. This is precisely the reason why it's like the last ditch effort to basically apply pressure and try to tilt Chinese manufacturing. And if they don't do this now, then it's over. It's completely fucking over. Okay? I suspect that China is not on a three-legged stool, but instead a four-legged stool, and America is on a one-legged stool spinning like a top, as someone in the chat said. That is what I think. America's on a one-legged stool spinning like a top, and the leg of the stool is also made in China, ironically enough. The analogy with a three-legged stool is that it means it doesn't wobble at all. A four-legged can wobble. Okay, whatever. Fucking two-legged stool for China and one-legged stool for America then. That is the analysis. And yet, it seems to me like maybe it's not going the way that America thought it would. As ASEAN joins Japan, China, and South Korea in protectionism warning, finance and central bank chiefs reaffirm commitment to free trade. Here is the statement, not paywalled. China, Japan, and South Korea and the countries of ASEAN just issued a joint statement in which they take a unified stance against escalating trade protectionism. A clear reference to Trump's tariffs. They write that their common policy priority is to reinforce long-term resilience of the region, which, given the policies they detail, clearly means building financial and trade infrastructure that aims to reduce their exposure to the United States. The statement outlines a comprehensive strategy to strengthen trade between the signatories, enhance local currency bond markets, and reduce dependence on Western financial institutions via, for instance, their expansion of the Chiang Mai Initiative Multilateralization, CMIM. Particularly notable is their explicit support for the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the RCEP, ACN, the world's largest trade agreement that includes all signatories but not the United States. All in all, Trump is achieving the unthinkable, bringing East and Southeast Asia together in an economic bloc that seeks to de-risk itself from America. I don't know if this is just strategy so that the other signatories can leverage America for more, because that could be the case, or if this is a real shot directly at Trump to say, we are not decoupling from China. I know that that is your demand, but we're not going to do that. They are far too valuable a trade partner for us to sever ties with. So we will not do that, especially because if they were to do that, there is no alternative. There's no alternative as it stands. There's no like rare earth minerals, right? Rare earth minerals. The refinement process of rare earth minerals is entirely in the hands of China. They have a complete monopoly on refinement. They almost have a monopoly on procurement too, with all of the deals that they've negotiated with nations in Africa. Okay. But they literally have a complete monopoly on the refinement process. You can't do anything without that. What are you supposed to do? You can't do anything. So where is the alternative? Is it in India? Is that going to happen? What is the runway for such a thing? 10 years? 5 years? Ah, yes, Twitter reporting at its finest. Twitter reporting. Brother, I'm looking at the joint statement from ASEAN +3 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting. There is no more a primary source than what we are currently looking at. The fuck do you mean Twitter reporting at its finest? Hello? Where should I get my news from? Fox News only? Where they fucking tell you where they tell you that it's actually great. Donald Trump is our Lord and Savior. He's cooking big time. Is that what it is? Please tell me where I should be going to get this information. Come on, raw meat enjoyer. Maybe the raw meat has caused you to develop some brain worms. I don't know. You gonna tell me you have an alternative or what? Come on, man. Give me an alternative news resource that I don't look at. Come on, brother. It's time to own me in the marketplace of ideas. I'm shaking you a little bit. Shaky, shaky. Shake the baby. It's funny because I initially also went to Nikkei, and they were paywalled. So in order to bypass the paywall, I went to the direct joint statement, and it was posted on Twitter, but he didn't see that part. He just saw me on Twitter and responded like an animal. Yeah, I should be getting it from a fucking pedophile VTuber. That's where I should be getting my primary information. My primary resource is a lolicon enjoying pedophile VTuber with questionable morals. Anyway.
Now, at the same time, I'm not looking to have China make hundreds of billions of dollars and build more ships and more army tanks and more airplanes.
So you're not, just to be very clear, you're not dropping the tariffs against China to get them to the negotiating table. Those tariffs are staying on.
Why would I do that?
Would you lower them?
At some point, I'm going to lower them because otherwise you could never do business with them.
Yeah.
And they want to do business very much. Look, their economy is really doing badly. Their economy is collapsing.
So small businesses say they are being hurt by the Chinese tariffs, and some could be forced to shut down.
And many businesses are being helped.
Are you considering tariff relief for small businesses?
Why do you always mention that, you know, you pick up a couple of little businesses? What about the car business? They're going to make a fortune because of the tariffs. Do you know that the union, the head of the union, who was no fan of mine, Sean Fain, I guess his name is, right? He didn't endorse me. The Teamsters did. A lot of people did. A lot of unions did. But he didn't. He couldn't stand me. Now he's saying, wow, what's Trump's done for the automobile? But I can't believe it. I assume he's going to probably now say the next thing he can say is, I endorse this guy. He's the greatest I've ever seen. He can't believe it's happened. He said, we've been waiting 40 years for somebody to do what Trump is doing. So why don't you mention the big car industry instead of mentioning somebody that's doing strollers?
Well, I'm just asking you about small businesses. Are there any discussions about giving any relief to small businesses?
They're not going to need it.
Okay.
They're going to make so much money.
Are these tariffs?
If you build your product here. Remember, there are no tariffs if you build your product here. It's very easy. It's very simple.
Are these tariffs permanent?
Wait, what? I was working on a project that was a novel method of purifying rare earth minerals using lasers, but our grant is now pending thanks to Trump. Oh my God, that's amazing. That's fucking so funny. That's just like, we're burning the candle on both ends, dude. It is, oh my Lord. It is, half of the research team is like foreign students on visas that have now gotten their visas revoked too, or are in detention because they were in the periphery of a pro-Palestine protest and had parking tickets. So now they're getting deported. Amazing.
Mr. President?
Depends on what you're talking about. One of the things that is going to bring and has brought, so I think we probably have close to $9 trillion of investments coming into this country. If you look at other presidents, there's never been anything like that. This is over a period of 2 months. You got to give me a little break on the 1 month because we're 3 months. But, you know, let's say we had to get started. We had a lot of.
Give me a little break. Dude, the funniest part about this is that if he didn't do the like tariff scheme, none of this would be happening. Like, so it's not even like, oh, you got to give me 1 month. Give me a little break. Cut me a little break here. Like, no, you are the one who fucked it up. Like, this is your own design. Of course this was going to happen. And the medicine analogy isn't even wrong. That's the worst part. The economy is going to hurt in the short term, but we must, you know, train our crosshairs on the long-term agenda of American stability, American growth, American manufacturing. That isolated as a statement is absolutely a correct statement. That's why the likes of Sean Fain and some others have been like, listen, we think that this is irresponsible tariff trade war, but if done correctly, tariffs are not bad. You know, trade protectionism is something that we are on board with. We don't like free trade. I get it. I don't like free trade. So what is Fain didn't call it irresponsible. Yes, Sean Fain did call it irresponsible. Come on, man. I'm the #1 fucking Sean Fain dick rider. Are you kidding me? He said, if done correctly, we are on board with Trump's tariffs agenda in the automotive sector. If done recklessly, it will be irresponsible and lead to real harm. Why do you think that the leader of one of the largest labor unions in the country would ever come out with a statement saying we love free trade? You know, of course not.
Fake news at the beginning, so we had to beat that down. But so let's say in 2 months. So in just a short period of time, a matter of a couple of months, we have the largest number.
He isn't going to do it correctly, right? We know that much. I mean, he hasn't. That's the whole point. He has not done it correctly. That's why there's so much. I mean, there would be instability. There would be volatility regardless. Okay. When you're rewriting trade agreements that contradict the past 40 years of American currency dominance, American currency sovereignty, the past 40 years of trade in general that we designed, yeah, of course there's going to be an economic impact instantly. The correct way, what is the correct way? I will repeat myself once again. The correct way to do this is unironically going above and beyond what the CHIPS Act was trying to do with the Brandon administration, which is to build a infrastructure and a robust manufacturing, domestic manufacturing base in the country so that there is some manufacturing that could compete with China and other global trade partners to begin with. This would require heavy subsidies, and not even subsidies, actually. This would require for America to basically turn into a command economy. If you were to do this correctly, you would have to do it the Chinese way, in the almost exact same way that China did it. And then once you have a trained labor force ready to take on ready to take on manufacturing at its most complex form, okay, precision manufacturing, then you would be able to do some trade protectionism. And in the interim, if you were to do trade protectionism, it would require you to do trade protectionism against things that we already have trade protectionist policies against already, like car manufacturing, things like that. The problem, of course, is that we don't do that in this country. We've never done that. We just basically give subsidies out and have no expectation in return. You know, price stability, sure, right? We subsidize and then we say, all right, just keep the prices relatively low. But many of those subsidies basically go back to the profit margins so that the stock market is supercharged rather than keeping costs low and keeping wages high, which would eat away at the profit margins. And there are no consequences for not following through on this bargain anyway. There's no regulatory mechanism that turns around and tells companies to just stop doing stock buybacks, for example. There's no penalties for doing whatever the fuck you want to do. Everything is incredibly decentralized. There's also no long-term plan longer than 4 years. 4 years. Try 4 months. Try 3 months. This is the reason why this inconsistency, this instability that Trump has presented to global trade is destined to fail. Okay? Because there is no trade to protect, and you're just demanding by bullying other countries, by putting a gun to your own head because you're the bank, putting a gun to your head and saying, I'm going to kill myself if you don't stop trading with the enemy. But people still need goods. So what are they supposed to do?
Ever in history invested in the United States and committed. We have between guaranteed spoken for and people that are going to make a decision and announce it pretty soon, close to $9 trillion. We've never had anything close. Now, that's Apple building $500 billion worth of plants. They always built their plants in China. Now they're building their plants over here. That's the biggest computer company, the biggest chip company in the world. You know, the chip company from Taiwan, which is the biggest in the world, is committed for $500 billion.
Yeah, in the short term, you get assurances from some of these like multi-billion dollar mega corporations that are multinational to turn around and say like, sure, we'll do some investment in America. Why not? There's no assurances though. It's not going to happen. You don't know if it's going to happen. Are they building the factories? How long would it take? Yeah, it's like this chatter. I also commit $10 trillion into the United States. You know? Content warning, dead animal in his house. Took the day off to find some dead animal in my attic that smelled bad and ended up falling through the ceiling. Pretty sure I'm living in Sen's fortress. Oh my God. Oh my God. Asmongold. What the fuck? I can't even see the dead animal. I have no idea what's going on. But this is unironically something he posted. What the fuck? Dude, this is the face of the new American right. I don't even know what Zen's fortress is. Oh, it's Dark Souls? I'm begging to play Dark Souls. It's from DS1. I played DS1. I didn't finish it. Or did I finish it? I can't remember. Dark Souls reference. I can smell this photo, man. It's an early game area, so no, you haven't finished it yet. I mean, I don't remember any of the fucking places in Elden Ring either. What do you mean? And I finished that on stream. Or Sekiro. My brain is filled with information that oftentimes has the capacity to push out other more relevant, more important gaming related trivia. It's so gross, but 100% also on brand for him. His chat loves it. I know.
Another one's committed for $300 billion. We have companies, nobody's ever seen anything like it. Let me tell you the other thing, very importantly, automobile companies, plant after plant after plant, Toyota, Honda, Ford, General Motors, Stellantis. I mean, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I don't like this, but it happens to be. They're stopping work in Mexico and they're stopping work in Canada and they're all moving here.
This is important, though. You're not taking the possibility that these tariffs could be permanent off the table. Some of them.
Oh, I wouldn't do that because if somebody thought they were going to come off the table, why would they build in the United States?
Let me ask you
You
about,
understand that, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, but that's why I'm asking, because there's a lot of, I think, uncertainty for CEOs, for business owners. They want to know, are these tariffs permanent?
I think there's only uncertainty in the fake news. I don't think there's uncertainty. I mean, I've been very rigid, very strong on it, but I will say I'm flexible. Like with respect to parts made outside of the country, I gave the automobile companies a little extra time. You know, you're talking about 15% and then 10% of the parts put in a car. I gave them a little extra time without penalizing them. And I did that only to help, you know, companies. We're looking to help companies. We want them to thrive and to hire a lot of people, and that's what's happening.
Let me ask you about some of what Wall Street has said. Some people on Wall Street have expressed concerns that the possibility of a recession is increasing. And I want to know what you think about that. Are you comfortable with the country potentially dipping into a recession for a period of time if you are able to achieve your long-term goals?
Well, you know, you say some people on Wall Street say, well, I can tell you something else. Some people on Wall Street say that we're going to have the greatest economy in history. Why don't you talk about them? Because some people on Wall Street say this is the greatest thing. Well, that's what I'm getting at.
That's what I'm getting at, though. It's the same question.
Yeah, there are many people on Wall Street say this is going to be the greatest windfall ever happened.
And that's my question, the long term. Yeah. Is it okay in the short term to have a recession?
This. Look, yeah, everything's okay. What we are, I said, this is a transition period. I think we're going to do fantastically. One of your colleagues on another fake news station, ABC, said, do you guarantee 100% that a certain person is going to do a fantastic job as, let's say, Secretary of Defense, okay? Because that was the question. I said, what kind of a question is that? Do I guarantee 100%? Nobody guarantees 100%. But I will say this. I think we're going to have an economy the likes of which we've never had before. You know, my 4 years were phenomenal, as you know, the stock market. In fact, even though we had to go through the COVID thing, that horrible situation with COVID, we did numbers. And when I gave it over, when I handed it over, the election was rigged. And because of that, we have a lot of problems, by the way. But when I handed it over, what happened? the market was higher than it was previous to COVID coming in.
Yeah.
Nobody could believe it. The stock market I'm talking about.
I don't want to look back, but you did take your case to court about that.
Back.
You took your case to court about your allegations against the election. Let me ask you,
There's
sir.
no question about it. The election was rigged. The facts are in, and it's still being litigated. Let's go.
You did take your case to court more than 60 times and didn't win those cases.
I won a lot of court cases.
Just to button that up, though, sir. Just to button that up.
What are you talking about?
How
the election
worried are you?
Are we talking about the election
Let's
of
talk about
2020?
here and now. Let's talk about
the
here and now.
election of 2020?
Let's not talk about. Let's talk about here and now. Are you worried about a recession?
No.
Okay.
No. I think we're going to have the greatest economic.
I mean, are you worried it could happen? Do you think it could happen?
Anything can happen, but I think we're going to have the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to have the greatest economic boom in history.
Let me ask you about this call to Amazon founder Jeff Bezos this week in response to a report that Amazon was going to display tariff costs next to product prices. Are you going to punish CEOs who increase their prices because of tariffs?
I think what is a great misnomer is the word tariff in many cases. It's not, to me, I don't view it as a tax. I view it as an incentive for people to come into the United States and build plants, factories, offices, a lot of things. I think it's an incentive, but the thing that's not known is if you look back and see, oftentimes like China or Vietnam or other countries, not just China, because China's an abuser, but there are other abusers. Many of them are friends, the so-called, I say friend and foe, and friend is oftentimes worse than foe. But what people don't understand is, and this is a lot, the country eats the tariff. The company eats the tariff, and it's not passed along at all.
Well, some CEOs are saying they're going to have to pass it on. So how do you deal with those CEOs?
But the company,
how do you deal with those CEOs?
China.
Famously, it's not. Companies love eating the cost. I like that he's at least recognizing that companies actually pay the tariff. But what is this? I don't know if this means anything, but I thought you were taking a day off, and then I realized I was no longer following you on Twitch. I didn't unfollow. Anyone else experiencing anything like this, or am I going bonkers? You're going bonkers, dude. Yeah. Companies famously love eating the cost. They have this. They have a sense of pride, a civic duty. Remember when they did that? Remember when OPEC did that? When the invasion of Ukraine started? And then all of the oil and gas industry in America famously was like, "Oh yeah, we'll make up for the manufacturing needs. We'll actually sell to America so that prices can remain stable." Yeah. Remember another instance of companies eating the cost. Remember when they famously lowered their prices post-COVID? When there was no longer an issue with logistics. I'm always thinking about companies eating the cost all the time.
Is eating the tariffs right now.
What do you say to those CEOs who are saying we might have to pass this on to the consumer?
Well, they say that because maybe it's to their advantage to say it.
Will
Maybe
you punish them?
No, because you know what? I want them to build plants in the United States. That way they don't have any tariffs. See, tariffs will, and not only will, look at what's happened. In 2 months, we're close to $9 trillion of investment. We've never been anywhere near that.
What did you say to Jeff Bezos?
He's just a very nice guy. We have a relationship. I asked him about it. He said, well, I don't want to do that. And he took it off immediately.
So he changed course. And will you take that same tactic with other CEOs if you
I'll
feel
always
like...
call people if I disagree with them. If I think that somebody's doing something that's incorrect, wrong, or maybe hurtful to the country, I'll call, absolutely. Wouldn't you want me to call? Biden wouldn't call because he didn't know what was happening, but I do.
Takes me to my next question. Today's strong jobs report likely means, not clear, but likely means the Fed is less likely to lower interest rates.
Well, he should lower them, and at some point he will. He'd rather not because he's not a fan of mine, just doesn't like me because I think he's a total stiff. And, it's just one of those things. He should lower them. And I would.
He appointed him, by the way. his appointment wants to get another Trump appointee that Trump is just shitting on. He's a total stiff. Whoever appointed this guy is a real idiot.
I wish the people that are on that board would get him to lower, because we are at a perfect time. It's already late, but he should lower interest rates.
Do you rule out removing Fed Chair Jerome Powell?
I'm not, I get to change him very quickly anyway. It's in a very short period of time.
In 2026. You're not going to remove, you don't have plans to remove him before 2026 when his time's up?
That was a total, why would I do that? I get to replace the person in another short period of time.
Okay. This week, you reshuffled your national security team.
Yeah.
You moved National Security Advisor Mike Waltz to UN ambassador. Just to remind our viewers, Waltz, of course, started that unsecure text chain where sensitive information was shared. Mr. President, was that move a punishment?
No, I just think he'll do a nice job in the new position. Marco's doing an outstanding job. No, Marco won't keep, Marco's very busy doing other things, so he's not going to keep it long term. We're going to put somebody else in. But I think Mike, who's, as you know, he's a fine guy, and I think he'll do a very good job. Knows the countries, knows leadership, and I think he'll do a very good job at the United Nations. And in the meantime, Marco's really doing something special, and it's going to work out very well.
We're hearing some potential names. Stephen Miller's name, one of your longtime, most loyal aides. His name has been talked about as a potential national security advisor. Is he someone you're looking at?
Well, I'd love to have Stephen there, but that would be a downgrade. Stephen is much higher in the totem pole than that, in my opinion.
Can you tell us who the front runner is right now?
I have a lot of people that want it. I will tell you, I have everybody calling. Everybody wants to be a part of this administration. So at some point, we'll, probably do that. There's a theory, Henry Kissinger did both. There's a theory that you don't need two people, but I think I have some really great people that could do a good job.
So Secretary Rubio could continue to have both jobs indefinitely?
He could, yeah, he could. But I think he even would like to probably see.
When I'm talking about good foreign policy decisions, I love bringing up Henry Kissinger. Great.
Because it is a little bit different. But in the meantime, he'll handle it. And I think Mike, if that goes forward, he still has to get approved. But I think Mike will do a very good job at the United Nations.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, obviously also on that unsecure text chain. He was sharing sensitive information. Are you looking for a new Secretary of Defense, Mr.
No,
President?
not even a little bit. No. Pete's going to be great.
His job is safe right now?
We're doing a fantastic job against the Houthis,
Little
who
March.
like blowing ships up and watching them sink in the ocean. We're hitting them very hard. No, he's doing a very good job.
His job is safe right now?
Totally safe.
Okay. Let's talk about the border. Okay. Let's talk about deportations. Border crossings are at their lowest level ever recorded. Is the border...
Is that good?
Is the border now secure?
Yeah, it's really secure.
It's absolutely
isn't that good?
secure.
When you say that, doesn't that just sound good? After being abused for years by an incompetent president that allowed people to pour through an open border, criminals from all over the world, murderers and insane people from mental institutions and insane asylums. Isn't it a beautiful thing when you say it's the most secure it's ever been in the history of our country? Isn't that a nice statement?
Well, I'm curious to know what it means. You declared a national emergency on the southern border. The order is still in place.
By the way,
even
it
though
means
you're saying
exactly
the border's
what you
secure.
said. It means we have the most secure border we've ever had.
Well, and I guess the question becomes, when will you know that the emergency is over? Are you planning to lift it at some point? Is it necessary? Because obviously the military is involved. Will you lift that emergency?
Well, the biggest emergency is the courts aren't allowing us to take really
We're going to
bad
talk
people
about
out.
that, but talk to me first about this.
That's to me the emergency.
Talk to me first about this
The border
emergency.
now is not the emergency. The border is it's all part of the same thing, though. The big emergency right now is that we have thousands of people that we want to take
This is a surprisingly good interview, by the way.
out, and we have some judges that want everybody to go to
Some
court.
of them you appointed, sir, including
That's all right.
3 on the
They
Supreme Court.
change. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how that happens, but they do
she's
change.
actually
Just to button
doing a
this
pretty-
up, though, are you
pretty good
planning to
job.
lift that emergency order anytime soon, now that the border's
No,
secure?
we have an
You say the
emergency. We
border's
have a massive emergency overall. It's an overall emergency on immigration. And if the courts don't allow us to take people out, If we had to have a court case, think of it, every single person, we have millions of people. We're going to have millions of court cases. Figure 2 weeks a court case, it would be 300 years.
So let's talk about this, because obviously you've had a back and forth with the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return. You've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision.
I do think it's kind of funny, even if it's scary, that we've completely dropped all pretense that like the DOJ is supposed to be independent. Like, he just keeps talking about the DOJ as his lawyers. They're not supposed to be your lawyers, dude. They're a part of the Department of Justice. You're acting like they're your lawyers. And I know they are, but that's crazy to just say. We've moved beyond any semblance of normalcy.
In the way you said it, they don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your Attorney General says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have
ordered?
the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the Attorney General that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Well, you know, and your Attorney General has said the issue is with that word facilitate. Will you seek clarification from the Supreme Court? Do you need to go back to the Supreme Court?
We may do that. I was asking about that. We may do that. There are some people that say, bring him back, put him in trial, and you get him out right away, because you see what happened just this morning. Tapes came out, horrible tapes from his wife. You don't get much worse than that. You don't get, I mean, he seems certainly like a very...
Trump's ex-wife literally detailed out how Donald Trump physically, violently assaulted her and raped her throughout their marriage. I'm pretty sure, right? The tapes he's referencing is like, I think it was like the initial, the initial testimony to get a, to potentially get a temporary restraining order. Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a temporary restraining order taken out against him, or at least filed for, that was never enforced by his wife at the time, the woman who was like demanding his return to the country. She's already talked about this and said that this was like out of an abundance of caution, and that they had very clearly worked out their differences by going to counseling. Out of an abundance of caution, due to the actual domestic abuse that she had received in her first relationship before Kilmar Abrego Garcia, she took out a TRO. Stop mentioning Trump's ex-wives. We're not talking about Trump right now. We're talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And he is referencing Kilmar Abrego Garcia's temporary restraining order petition when he says the tapes came out.
Very dangerous, very bad person. But even the wife, who was so afraid, she was afraid to talk. And all of a sudden, tapes got released this morning that were devastating to him.
And this is the point, sir, about due process. The Constitution says every person, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Why not push to have him come back, present all of that evidence in court, let a judge decide?
Well, I'll leave that to the lawyers, and I'll leave that to the Attorney General of the United States,
but
because they're in it. You have to understand, I'm dealing with Russia and Ukraine. I'm dealing
we're
with
going to talk
China.
about that.
I'm dealing with Iran. I'm dealing with Rwanda and Congo, who are fighting, and we're trying to get that one straightened out, and I think we have done that. Did a great job. Nobody even talks about it, but I think we're close to doing that. They're looking like they're going to maybe make a peace deal, which would be good. But I'm dealing with a lot of different things. I don't know much about this gentleman other than I hear he's an absolute not good person. And I have very capable legal people, John Sauer, as you know, and all top people. And I have to rely on that to interpret whatever is said by the Supreme Court. Now, with that being said, I have tremendous respect for the Supreme Court. Look, 3 of the people are people I appointed.
Right.
And I have great respect for the Supreme Court. And I would expect that the Attorney General will be doing the right thing.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment.
Dog, you're the president. You literally put your fucking hand on the Bible when you pledge an oath that you will uphold the Constitution. That's it. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. I don't know about due process. Actually, he didn't. Okay, wait, there wasn't a Bible? Oh, he's the Antichrist, bro. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter that he didn't fucking... He still took an oath of office. Okay? Oh my God. God, they get away with so much, dude. That type of shit is like things that Republicans would basically hallucinate the Antichrist is returning if it was like a Democrat that did something similar.
Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process.
The oath is a joke. I know it's a joke, but it doesn't matter. Like, you're not supposed to admit that it's a joke. What do you mean? The entire, like, it's symbolic, but the whole point is like you're supposed to protect the Constitution. Due process is in it. It's a pretty important part of it, actually. Yeah, Joe Biden took the oath of office. Donald Trump swore on 2 Bibles for his first inauguration, one given to his mother when he was a child, and the Lincoln Bible. These 2 Bibles were President Trump's side during his second inauguration, but he did not place his hand on them. Oh my God. Why are you applying such a high standard to him? Why can't you account for his age? Yeah, you're right, dude. He's just a little guy. He's just old, man. He don't know what he's saying. It's fine. Who cares about due process? Fuck it. YOLO. She looks so disgusted. Oh my God, the Bibles are right there. He's not even holding it. First atheist president.
Process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know. It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth. But some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again.
Okay, I take it back. I said she was doing a good job, but in this situation, you have to switch gears because you're not talking to a normal president. You're not talking to a normal person in general. You have to switch gears and explain to him the importance of due process. When he says, I don't know, you have to literally turn around and be like, okay, if there's no more due process, then anyone and everyone can be falsely deported. That's the problem. It's you can't have ICE agents be judge, jury, and executioner. That cannot happen. That is the reason for why due process exists. You are a Republican. You have talked about witch hunts. You have talked about being falsely smeared. The reality of the matter is you got due process. And if it wasn't for due process, if you hadn't gotten due process, you could have potentially been locked away permanently. Don't you feel like this is the good reason as to why there is a concept such as due process? Like, you have to lower your argument for some when your opponent demonstrates that they do not care about the normalcy or like the normal function of institutions. You have to move beyond just simply pointing to those institutions and saying like, well, don't you think we should preserve them? Even if it's an institution as important as like the Constitution or the Supreme Court, it doesn't matter. You have to demonstrate why the violation of due process, like the removal of due process is bad. You have to explain it to him. And not just explain it to him, but his own fan base that is going to be tuning into this frequency also will be able to understand why this is scary. Of course, Trump could then deploy the excellent debate strategy of saying, this is boring. Don't you want to make content? And maybe start making fun of her mannerisms. And even mannerisms that she doesn't even have. This is unwatchable. You are ruining the content. This is why your ratings are low. Boring. What do you have to say to... I know you're at CNBC, but what do you have to say about ABC calling me a coward? What do you have to say to that? Mr. President, I'm not. I work for NBC News, not ABC. Well, you can make a value judgment, right? Make a value judgment about ABC's commentary now. Do it. Do it now. Do it now. You're making it boring.
I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
Is anyone in your administration right?
You sleep in a race car bed. I sleep with my wife in my big bed. With my wife, Melania. That's right. It's true.
Now, in contact with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia to the United States?
I don't know you.
I don't think he understands this is the major point of contention. We can't have a trial for every single person. That would be millions of trials. I don't think the Supreme Court will stand for that. I can't believe it, because you know what? If they do, we're not going to have a country. No, like, this is the dumbest argument against something that is supremely important to the Constitution, which is it's too hard. Like thousands and basically 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years of like liberal concepts, okay? 1,000 years of like liberal philosophy versus one guy saying it's too difficult. Like, bro, they had courts and some semblance of due process when there were fucking kings. Like, what are we talking about? Like, there was literally, like, they had courts during fucking kings. What do you mean? It's too difficult. It's too difficult. We can't do it. We can't do it. The UK and Sweden still have a king? Okay, you know what I mean. I'm talking like straight monarchy era, okay? Courts are bad content. I never liked it. We must do away with the courts unless they like me, in which case I will allow it. I will allow it.
Trying to get very good ones. I mean, we need judges that are not going to be demanding trials for every single illegal immigrant. We have millions of people that have come in here illegally, and we can't have a trial for every single person. That would be millions of trials. The people elected me in a landslide with every single. We won every swing state. We won everything there is to win by big numbers. Not only swing state, we won the popular vote by millions of votes. They elected me. This was the #1 issue, and now we have judicialized, and they're crazy because they want us to have. If you believe this, they want us to have a trial for every person that came in illegally into our country. So they come.
Yeah, I can believe it. That's the. What are you saying? That is how it's been done. What do you mean? Can you believe it? They want every person that I think is bad to be going through the court system. Like, what the fuck are you saying? Yes, dude, that's the law. What are you talking about? Of course, that is supposed to be the way things work. You can't just turn around and be like, look at how stupid these rules are. Can you believe it? He doesn't even acknowledge that that is a rule, by the way. He just says it's so crazy.
Come into our country illegally, and then we're supposed to take weeks, I guess, and months to have a trial on every criminal, and we have murderers all over the country. I don't think the Supreme Court will stand for that. I can't believe it. Because you know what? If they do, we're not going to have a country.
Like, that determination of whether or not someone is in here illegally and must be deportable is profoundly important so that citizens aren't getting fucking deported. Even by his own standards, but no one has seemingly brought this up to him. Like, what the fuck do you mean it's too difficult? The whole point is you don't know if someone is actually even an undocumented citizen. Like, what are we talking about?
You'd have to ask the Attorney General that question.
Okay. At least 2 Americans have been mistakenly detained and released by your administration, immigration authorities. Mr. President, should lawful residents of this country start carrying paperwork with them when they leave their homes?
I don't think that'll be necessary, but What you're not saying is that many people have been killed, maimed, badly hurt by illegal immigrants that came over that are from prisons and from jails and from mental institutions, and they're hurting our people. And if we don't get them out, we're not going to have a country for long. We need honest, we need honest media, and we need walls. We need to have borders. And by the way, I built a lot of walls, and if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to have those. You know, we would not be able to have the kind of numbers if I wasn't successful in building hundreds of miles of wall.
Very quickly, sir, the last time you and I spoke in December, you said that you would consider working on getting Dreamers legal status. Dreamers, of course, those who were brought here illegally as children. Where do those efforts stand? Is that a priority for you?
Well, it's not a priority for the Democrats because every time we talk about it, they don't want to talk about it because I guess they like it as a political issue, but they're not good at political issues because they still want to have men playing women's sports.
Well, Republicans do control Congress right now, Mr. President.
But the
Are you
Democrats
going to
don't.
make Dreamers a priority?
Well, you'd need for that, you would need to have support from Democrats, and we have no support from the Democrats.
Have you had any discussions about Dreamers?
Yeah, we've had discussions. We would do something. I'd love to put in beautiful immigration for everybody, but the Democrats don't want to approve anything. All they want to do is knock out a tax bill. We're trying to get approved right now, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And if it doesn't get approved, it's a 68% tax increase, and that's what the Democrats want. They want a 68% tax increase.
I want to mention something here, but just like with Jerome Powell, he's like, who could be the idiot that did this? With the tax increase that's coming for Americans, that is also something he did because he did not think that he would lose the election. So he set it up to make it whoever was supposed to be the president after his 2 terms and their problem. Because the way he cut the tax proposal, I mean, it ended up working for him, but the way he cut the previous tax cuts, the legislation that they started implementing in 2017, I believe, was that the way he cut it was that all of the tax brackets under the top marginal tax rate, the top marginal tax bracket, would actually inevitably have tax increases back to the previous level before 2017. Now he wants to make those tax cuts for the working class permanent. The only tax cuts that were made permanent in the 2017 legislation was, and this might come as a surprise to many of you, the top marginal tax bracket and corporate taxes. That's not true. Tax breaks, sunsets, 2025, all of them, just not just under top taxes. No, you're wrong. What? I'm pretty sure you're wrong. No, he made the top marginal tax bracket. I don't think they all sunset. No, the rich ones are permanent. The top marginal tax bracket and the corporate tax cuts were permanent. Make America Great Again. I want to go back to the 50s. They all sunset us on. That's why they're panicking. No, they aren't permanent. That's why they're doing accounting tricks to keep them. Hold on. I think you guys are getting lost in the weeds. I thought the top marginal tax rate and the corporate tax rate was made permanent. The corporate tax cut that was implemented is a permanent tax cut. And from what I recall, how the 2026 tax brackets would change if the TCJA expires. Oh shit. Wait, what the fuck? I am wrong. Damn. Holy fuck. The only one that's permanent is the corporate tax rate? I know that one is permanent. But I thought the top marginal tax rate would also stay at 37%. I was wrong. And not only was I wrong, I've been wrong for quite a while. That's crazy that the chatter who corrected me is also one of the most insane chatters that I have. Am I having a fucking Berenstein Bears moment or some shit? Why did I think this for the longest goddamn time? I feel terrible right now. I feel like my brain is doo-doo. Time to grift right wing? Yeah. Mandela effect, bro. Gotta watch How to Win John Wilson. We got shifted into a different timeline where MAGA communist Donald Trump is in charge. I don't think you've been wrong for a long time. I remember you explaining these at the time, and my understanding was that they're just the corporate taxes stay low. No, I definitely thought the top marginal tax rate. This I thought was permanent, and then these were slated to sunset. But I think it's because of this that I thought that it wasn't the top tax bracket. But it was the one under that that stays the same, I guess. So in my mind, I always thought it was the top tax bracket, maybe. But the corporate tax bracket is the same. And so is, I guess, not the second time. You don't know what you're saying? What do you mean? What was the first time? I don't know what I'm saying. Now you have to double down and shift right? Okay, we're good. I'm doubling down. Ethan podcast, if I recall correctly. What do you mean? The ones that are definitely permanent is the corporate tax rate. Anyway, let's continue.
It's rather incredible.
And I do want to talk to you about your legislation, but let's talk about DOJ very quickly. DOJ has fired and then rehired thousands of federal workers, including FAA employees in charge of aviation safety, specialists working on nuclear weapon safety. What do you say to those who believe Elon Musk's chainsaw approach has jeopardized the safety and security of Americans?
Well, he found $160 billion worth of fraud, waste, and abuse. I mean, I think he's done an amazing job. I think his people have done an incredible job. They're brilliant people. They know the computer. I actually asked him, what's their big trait? He said they're unbelievable at computers. In other words, you can't fake them out because these people are, in many cases, crooks. But it was fraud, waste, and abuse. They found, your question should be asked a different way. Were certain things found? Yes. How much? $160 billion. Think of what $160 billion is. He found $160 billion.
He said he'd find $2 trillion.
Well, we're not finished yet. We're not finished
yet. Do
yet.
you think the work continues even though he's leaving? He said
sure. He's leaving behind some very brilliant people. They were on television last night. They're super high IQ people. I like high IQ people. The Democrats don't have many of them.
Let me ask you about some news that broke. You are threatening to rescind Harvard's tax-exempt status.
Yeah.
And yet directing the IRS to investigate and rescind a university's tax-exempt status is contrary to what's in the federal law. The law says you can't do this. Do you think you're following the law?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to just follow what the lawyers say. They say that we're allowed to do that, and I'm all for it. But everything I say is subject to the laws being 100% adhered to.
Are you willing to take this to court if it becomes a court fight? You're going to take it that far?
We've won a lot of cases.
All right, let's talk about some of the other actions you've taken over the past 100 days. Last month, you directed your Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to review 2 people who you perceived to be your political adversaries. And yet you told me in December...
Bro, what's so funny about it is, like, when he says we won a lot of court cases, he actually hasn't. But I guess his advisors keep telling him that decisions that come down from the Supreme Court, for example, like the Kilmar-Abrego-Garcia return, like, he literally just listens to his lawyers, and his lawyers are like, yes, Mr. President, it was actually unanimous, 9-0 in your favor. Like, that's what Stephen Miller said. And Trump was like, come on, Stephen, you're so beautiful. Come on, Stephen, tell him what you told me about the Supreme Court decision. And it's crazy that, like, he just fucking lied on national television. That is not what the Supreme Court's decision is. It's the exact opposite. It is, the more I see of Trump on the main stage, the more I realize he is also Brandonized and is being used like a mecha, like a fucking flesh puppet by the likes of, like, Stephen Miller and some of the most reactionary Nazis. Straight up.
Remember that you would not direct the Justice Department to investigate your political foes. What changed?
Well, no, I just look at people, and I'm not directing anybody. They looked at these 2 people. They might have known it, or they might have heard it from 2 years ago. One person said, he knew me so well. He was, I think, on CNN or MSDNC, but they're both failing networks. You're happy to know, even though one of them, I guess, is related to you in one form or another, although they're trying to cut him loose as fast as possible. But it was well known that this one person, it was almost like he was my brother. I don't even know who he is. Maybe he was there. Maybe he was in the Oval Office a few times as a surrogate for, you know, somebody in some form of government, along with 25 other people that sat in the back of the room or stood in the back of a room. I have no idea who this guy is. And he's out there. And then he did a book called Anonymous. I think that's really subversion. I think it's spying. It's something really bad.
But you passed an executive order calling for your Attorney General
he's been
to
looked
investigate
at
that
for a long time. And the other one.
Oh my God, that's so fucking insane. He's trying to say that this dude was doing espionage for writing about his experience of being in the room as like a low-level staffer or whatever.
And said that the election was so wonderful. It was such a, well, it turned out it wasn't a wonderful election. It was a corrupt election.
Let me ask it this way, sir, because when we talked in December, I asked you, what is your message to people who didn't vote for you? Let me remind you of what you said. You said, I love you, and we're going to all work together. How does pursuing your political foes help to unify
Did I really say I love you?
You really did. That's a direct quote.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, but I'd like to see.
I promise I'll show it to you. I'll show you the tape.
Look.
How does that help to unify
I want to
the
treat
country?
people fairly, whether they voted for me or not.
This is like Ethan Klein being like, 110? You mean to tell me I've sent 110 Instagram stories? Well, that can't be true. You mean since 2023? Oh, no. You're telling me it's since 2021, January 31st, 2021. I don't believe you. I don't believe it.
Damn, this guy's good.